a little bit maybe helpless or, not really sure what to do. So I just wanted to have a open conversation. Can we create some sort of a process or protocol for that to help them through these types of scenarios, and just I guess a candid conversation, so that if these types of things happen again in the future, they have some clear direction as to how the board or the process of the county wants to handle these things. So I don't know. You have any input?
I would agree. EPA and MPCA contacted, and I heard this from Carly, they contacted her the night before saying they were coming to town and they wanted to make a couple site visits, but they wouldn't tell her who, where, just meet us at, I think, was it a gas station or somewhere out on the country? She was supposed to meet him somewhere. So she had no preparation, no files, no notes, and everything. And they just kind of show up. And first of all, it's kind of disturbing is that they showed up and apparently they didn't have any biosecurity. Like, you don't go to animal livestock production without, protection these days because of the spread of disease and everything. They didn't have any of that. And the first farm they wanted to go to, nobody was home. So they left and they went to their second choice. And that second choice was the owner was not available, but the person operating the operation was there, and what I understood, a fairly young person, and they didn't know what their rights or responsibilities were. And Carly didn't either know what her rights as an employee and a individual citizen were either. So I guess that's what we're looking for. And I'm looking at Attorney Sonneman, that we should somehow have some protocols to say, wait a minute, I need to,
check in with somebody.
yeah.
Well,
I mean, she was just kind of steamrolled with higher agencies
she
saying,
didn't
we're
really know.
coming.
Yeah, my take on it was that she didn't really know what to do. And she was put in a very, very bad situation where, and again, this would be true with any sort of position where all of a sudden something comes down and that person doesn't know what their options are. Can they talk about it, not talk about it? Can they go to administration? Can they not go to administration? Their job literally might even be on the line. They have no idea what to do, right? If I talk about it, I might expose it. If I don't talk about it, then I might have had to have talked about it. She was put in a very precarious situation where she did not know what to do. And again, it's almost irrelevant to what the topic is and what it was about. But and then we can bring this to step 2. And this is a little more subject to a feedlot officer and being in the ag industry. I believe a feedlot officer is there to enforce, but they're also there to help and to serve our tax-paying farming entities in the county and help them be in compliance and guide them. And it takes a certain amount of, I don't want to use the word becoming a friend, but you got to have trust both ways. And if that person knows that, hey, I can trust this feedlot officer to kindly push me or move me or lead me into the right direction where I need to go, even when I'm stubborn, because farmers get stubborn. And, they want that two-way street. And this broke that. This literally came in, snapped it in half, and said she got put in a situation where she now had to look at people that she needs to go work with every day and say, I got put in a situation to try to get you. And I don't believe that's what our feedlot officer is there for. I believe it's a support organization. Yes, there's a partial enforcement there too, but it needs to go 2 ways. So when these things come, I think we need some clear direction as to what they are, so that, does the MPCA or EPA care if her relationship was broke with these farmers, the Farmers Trust as a whole, out in the whole county, not just the farmers that she attended, but in the whole county.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden it's a standoff relationship. Like, whoa, I don't want you knowing any more than you want, because I might be the next guy. And we can't have that, because that is how you start having, they're there to make this thing work. So I was very put out by that they weaponized an employee. In my opinion, they weaponized an employee in Winona County that has to gain because trust me, I get to hear about what's feedlot off, what Mark Gurnis, Carly, I've heard it all for 25 years, guys. I've been directly involved with this for 25 years. So I hear it all. And if you do not have a good relationship with that person, it just makes it very difficult. So I'd like to figure out if there's a way we could do this.
Chris, can I jump in? Informal, right?
Yeah, it is informal.
This is a question, Eric, and I'm sorry I didn't give you a heads up. So if you can't answer it, or this is for Eric or Maureen or Marcia as well, how often does this happen? I don't remember this happening during my first 2 terms. Has it happened, Marcia, in your memory?
For the feedlot program, no.
Oh, I
This
don't-
is,
go
this is
ahead.
a first. Certain degrees like the septic, waste hauling, the septage was controversial in the mid-90s where there was some EPA presence. But no, nothing to this nature. This is completely top down.
And I don't know this producer, this farmer very well. Do we know why that person was paid? Was it dark? There must have been some
yeah.
criteria.
And actually,
We don't know. I
we
guess.
could comment on the 2 farms, but what I can say is that these are long-term farmers with well-established histories. I know both of them very well. And there's nothing more or less than what they're doing than to have targeted them versus anybody else. I could come up with a dozen other farms, I would say, if you're going to do something, start there, right? It definitely wouldn't be these. But I have an idea as to why they were chosen, and that's just my own.
Okay.
And I don't think it actually was the individual. I think it was the type of
Okay.
farm that was chosen in a random area due to it being a well-known type area for what happens in that area.
Can I go on?
Yeah.
Eric, do you have any thoughts or suggestions?
I don't, other than the federal government, EPA. I mean, I think we had discussed this with the county attorney's office. And the county has opted in. Very early on, we could have opted out like Olmsted County or Wabasha County. But we established a feedlot program because we wanted that local liaison to be working with people. There is, as far as compelling the powers of the state, I believe there is some legal argument to say that it's up to the EPA if they're going to do those measures. I think we have our programs that's bound by the state, and they're almost working independent of that in this kind of format. So,
But the EPA's power relies in the CAFOs,
Right.
right?
What, I'm sorry?
The CAFOs,
Yeah.
Yes.
which don't allow them
The-
to actually have inspection.
Confined
rights,
animal.
Confined animal units. So it doesn't allow them to have authority in anything under a certain number.
Right. And these were both under,
These were both under
they were
that,
actually smaller operations.
which is why they were told, hey, you need to leave because they can't exercise their authority in those scenarios. So again, it leads back to being put in a very poor position on something that, did she know that she could or couldn't do that? I mean, you've got a larger governing body coming in going, hey, I don't believe it was her job to discern. And to be honest with you, I mean, I wouldn't even expect you to know, right? Because it's never happened before.
Right.
And I believe, there might, whether that was designed by intention, what happened or not, things lead to look that way. And that's why I'm saying if this is the way the powers to be are going to interfere in our county, we need to set protocol that anybody in that position or any other position that something like this ever happens in, we've got a protocol so that person doesn't feel trapped, because I believe she felt trapped. And that's my opinion. But based on the conversations I had, she felt like, am I going to lose? If I do the wrong thing, am I in trouble with the law or am I going to lose my job?
Yeah.
Yeah,
and it
Well,
wasn't right.
I'm sorry, it is informal, right?
Yes, yeah, go ahead,
Okay,
please.
and I'm not sure what you're referring to as probably years ago, right?
yeah,
Yeah, but we probably should revisit that in the sense that this is almost like entering without a warrant.
Yeah.
I just read about that in a case. It wasn't a criminal case, but it was similar. But I think, yeah, we should establish a protocol where that person, whoever it is, I mean, it could be human services that contacts first their supervisor and also contacts our office, that, what is this about and why are they asking you to come out here?
correct.
Mhm.
So, because I don't like that either. I mean, when I heard about it, it was like,
Oh,
and it put Carly in a bad spot.
Yeah.
So I think if the board would, consider and with administration in my office, developing a protocol for that. I mean, because we may get, something from the FBI or something.
Yeah,
Well,
you don't know. That's
I
right.
don't know. And it just really puts, sorry, I'm talking about mouthful.
Yeah.
But it really does. I just felt my heart kind of went out to her because I could tell she just didn't know what to do.
I'll be devil's advocate for just 1 minute and then mention. On the one hand, we shouldn't be afraid of inspections if we, the county, are doing our job and producers are doing their job. So on the one hand, at the same time, though, there should be some kind of protocol so that it's clear that the farmers know it didn't come from our feedlot officer. This came from above. And the points you make, and Josh, are good in terms of it does break that communication link or creates trust issues with her, et cetera, is somehow to point out that this didn't come from her. That came from the EPA and MPCA. I'm just thinking out loud now. Would it make sense? On the one hand, I don't want us to overreact to something that may not happen for 20 years, but like you said, this is something that's good to do because we might need this in a wide range of issues. Can we maybe start? Who's the liaison with the EPA or MPCA on this? Is there like a person who?
It would normally be my understanding, the director of planning environmental. Is that accurate?
Yeah,
that's
and
part
the
of it.
Rochester would be our district office for feedlot compliance.
Maybe,
Is
I'm just
Mark
thinking.
Ernest still in that role?
I could jump in real quick.
Mhm.
It's not so much the fear of the inspection. It's the fact that you've now taken a government employee and put them into a legal situation where they're saying, you will take us to these farms. And she knows, hey, I don't know all the rules, but I know this isn't right. But
Right.
can I legally stand up and say, no, I'm put in a
Right.
very precarious
And
situation?
You're reading my mind is what I want to
Because that's what this is about.
is to ask for a letter to clarify what can and what can't happen and what are the county feedlot officers' options and choices do they need to
Even just, hey, you're not going to lose your job if you tell somebody what's going on.
right.
Cory, if I may.
I'm sorry.
No, it's absolutely fine. What occurred in my purview was the appropriate process. When the employee was contacted, she went to management within the department, and because there wasn't a department head, came to me. We talked about it. She contacted the county attorney's department, and we complied by going. However, just for clarification, and Ms. McGinty is on the call here or on the meeting, she can verify, but my understanding is that the fact that she didn't know who was going to be the location that they were going to, had no files, had no
No.
preemptive information, actually was communicated to the individuals that they did go to the one property. So they knew she was not involved in it. Just for, again, and feel free to ask Carly directly, but my understanding is that actually was a good thing in the sense that the owners knew she was not in on that whole situation and that her relationship was not damaged by that. Yes, they're not happy with what happened, but they do understand she was not involved. But the thing with coming up with a process or procedure, if you will, that will be a snapshot of the day that it is put together.
Yeah.
From my perspective, we still need to follow the same protocol of if an employee is notified, go to your supervisor, go to a department head, go to administration and involve legal. To me, that is the process to go through.
And that's what I'm kind of saying, but maybe some employees don't know that, and we should probably.
Or
put
when
that
you
out.
hear surprise, or don't tell somebody, or this is going to be secretive, or.
So more a communication about process. Is that what I'm hearing?
Right.
All I'm saying is that if a government entity wants to try to bully another government
Right.
entity, heaven forbid it happens, but it happens.
Yes.
And we put our people in a precarious situation that says, well, can I? I know that my administrator says I can, but these people are making it sound like I can't.
Right.
Whoa, somebody uses verbiage to, yeah, it's going to happen.
Mhm.
So they need to know, hey, look, it's okay.
Mhm.
And we need to go talk. And there shouldn't be any doubt that they know I got put in this situation. What can I do?
That's an existing policy.
It's a process.
Okay.
There isn't a policy. But I mean, that is just the process that we have followed. I mean, as long as I can remember, I mean, use the chain of command until you get an answer.
Was it late in the day that they contacted her? Carly
You'd
is
have to
on.
ask Carly, I don't know.
I was thinking it was like late in the day. And again, what if you're not available? I mean, is it, you just, and I guess one of the things that disturbs me is that somebody coming on if I'm the farm or whatever, and they're coming on my property without any kind of notice, even as a Winona County feedlot operator, do I have the right to tell them to get off? Come back, send me notice and tell me what you want and everything. I think in a way it's somewhat our responsibility to let our citizens know what their rights are.
Well, and I think there's a group of people that just believe they're above that.
Well,
They have the right to tell other people,
yeah,
I'm so important, my way is so right. I can go ahead and violate your right for the benefit of me and others.
Well, it's good to clarify what the county employee could and couldn't do, and also what the landowner or property owner, like you said, it could be that FBI asking some kind of, without a warrant or whatever else. So there should be people should know what their rights are, including the right to say, come back the next day.
yeah, making a
I
point.
guess to move the conversation along.
Can I just say something, Josh?
Oh,
before-
yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, just on the legal point of view, there's so many scam operations, and I'm not saying EPA or
Yeah.
MPCA, but I mean, we got a letter in my office yesterday saying that our CJCC website needed to be renewed. And so I checked with Colleen and she said, no, that's not the company we use. So
Yeah.
I
I
think
get those,
we
I
need-
get those all the time.
Well, I know, but it sets it's an example of, okay, if Charlie or if, trying to think some of the, social workers get a call from somebody,
Mhm.
let's verify. And what is the legal, what's the document or what's the, do they have something from their supervisor? The EPA or MPCA, or I'm thinking of even, trying to think what, Department of Revenue. I mean, they come in and, let's see a piece of paper, and
How do you verify? who
how do you
you're dealing
verify?
with?
And I'm assuming, probably knew these people, which is great, but another person might not, so, yeah.
Well,
It's
it's just really disheartening that a group of very good farmers, people that I know that are doing, it's no secret who it was, but one of the farmers, this guy's adapted cover crops, he's rotation, he's got alfalfa in, he's doing all these things right. And the audacity to somebody to say, I'm so better than you that I think you're doing it wrong. Go after that guy. It just blows my mind where people's mindsets are, and that, look at what this has created. So look at what it created. The discontent it created in our county, the discontent it created with an employee, the trust factor that might be broke. And then all of a sudden it puts the brakes on farming and how the government, how farmers see the government. Are they here to help me or are they here to hurt me? And we're in the mode of education and trying to help people go. Are we in the mode of regulation? And what this did was just say, whoa, they want to regulate me. Well, then now I close the doors down. You're not welcome on my farm. Get out of here. Come get a subpoena. Come get a whatever.
That doesn't,
And if you could just get people to think that way, but there's so many people that aren't involved in agriculture that they think they know they're God. They got it all figured out.
Is there something you want to do, Josh? Something you want to
So
see?
discontent. Frustrating.
Josh, is something you want to do, or should we work on like a review of?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
Can we move, is there any moving forward with this, or what do you have any thoughts on that? Could you draft something up? Work together?
I'm
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah, I can see if there's other, some of my colleagues who may have run into the same thing and come up with some language that, I can share with Maureen and then she can
Yeah.
share with you guys or whatever, but
And do you want it to come back to a regular board meeting for some kind of action, or do you want to have it come back to here for discussion?
I think it could be a little more discussion on it.
Yeah, yeah.
discussion on it. Yeah,
get some ideas.
And what's your time frame for looking at it?
Christmas,
No,
January.
February, January.
February, yeah, middle of January-ish. Is that okay?
So maybe
No,
the second meeting in January?
Which, and we kind of have 3 meetings.
We have
the
3
ninth.
meetings, yeah.
That's the ninth.
The 9th, yeah.
Or later, right?
Oh, well,
Yeah,
okay, what I
yeah,
really meant was
just-
the 3rd meeting in January.
Third
So,
meeting.
yeah, that would work for me. So
Okay.
that's great. Okay.
And I think particularly in, like Eric's area and such, this raised a lot of people's awareness of how to handle and how to do things. So I think that, I'm sure you got some kind of action plans moving forward just internally, but it does far reach other areas of the county. And one of the biggest things is like, government's so good at this, it's screwing it up and removing the trust. You know, like Josh said, you know,
It does.
people are trying to do the right thing and everything, and something like this
Just when
happens,
you-
and it just does a lot of bad things, unfortunately.
And that's just
It's very unfortunate.
unbelievable.
They could have come in, they could have sent a notice, say, hey, we would like to visit these, you know,
Let's
and
go
they,
see what the positive things you're doing.
yeah, but
Let's
it
go
just,
focus on that for a little bit.
Yeah,
Where
it
were
just-
you and where you been? Where are you going?
Mhm.
You know, I testified in a subcommittee meeting. I've never seen in agriculture. I'll dispute it with anybody. I don't care. I'm not saying I'm right. I'm just saying I'll dispute it because this is what I see. I've never seen the push for agriculture to change in more than I have in the last 5 years. And here we're doing stuff like this. Some person that somewhere, somebody says, I am so good that I know what I'm doing, that this is going to create a positive, and it's just the opposite of that.
Okay, are we ready to move on? Next item is 1.2. It has to do with community solar gardens. We can pass those down. The top, one of them is my proposed letter. The other one is from the Winona City Council packet from December 4th. Don Howard is the sustainability coordinator for the city, and he is on Zoom in case we have questions for him. Before I was in office, but back in March 28th of 2017, the county subscribed 100% to a community solar garden. There's a prospectus that's in the packet from that time. I guess the important part to know is that the state of Minnesota passed legislation in 2013. The Public Utilities Commission, Xcel Energy, and the public negotiated the rules for the program and the rate for reimbursement. And Xcel has now said that this is too expensive and it will hurt the ratepayers. And they want to reduce the rate at which so Xcel was directed to pay a certain rate, which is above retail for the electricity that's generated by the community solar gardens. They are asking for this to be reduced.
And is this just, if I could interrupt, is it just the community solar gardens or is this private?
Nope.
Just community?
Just community solar.
Okay.
And
well, they've messed with private too.
Yeah, and,
well, yeah,
and I-
there's-
and I know, because
yeah,
I got
but
a buddy that owns a solar company.
yeah.
And so,
So Mr. Howard has identified here that you can see on the packet that for at least in 2024, they're talking about small general connections going down 6 cents and the larger connections going down 3 cents. So at the time, Winona County was presented with this proposal that would allow us to purchase from Solarstone and save over the 25-year contract. And the 25 years was what the state said the contracts had to be. And we were told that we would end up saving a couple $1 million on our electricity over that 25 years. And this change would basically wipe that out. And Mr. Howard used our packet from back in March of 2017 to do the same sort of a calculation as he did for the city when he made a proposal to the city. So the city approved this letter to be signed by Scott Sherman, the mayor, basically saying, you're hurting us by doing this. And we don't agree, and we would prefer that you, Public Utilities Commission, which is currently taking comments, not make this change. So my request and the one that Mr. Bagley sort of went along with is that we would do something similar. And Mr. Howard did the calculation for our contracts and he came up with about 2 million is what we would lose. But I understand that the administrator has the actual spreadsheets for our projected savings. So we could update that number.
Did the city buy in 100%
They
also?
bought into a couple different gardens. Hey, Miss John? What percentage of the city's electricity is subscribed? We can't
Can't
hear
hear
you.
you. You're muted.
Yeah, he might not be muted, but we can't hear him.
Hello?
Mm.
Are you, oh, it's green now. Your microphone.
No, but we
no.
still,
Oh, the microphone flashed green.
it did. Maybe you could answer in the chat.
Well, unfortunately, while we're trying to get Mr. Howard on, I think the Excel already asked for a general rate increase of what, did I read 8% or something just recently in some publication? And one of the people who used to contact us from Micah is John Toomey, and he is part of the Public Utility Commission, yes. And him and I had a long conversation about a year ago about a solar operation in Dodge County that was close to a family member. And I don't disagree. We should send a letter and tell them we don't like it, but hopes of them changing are slim.
I don't know. A number of other communities. I have a letter from Sibley County. There's a school district that has filed. I looked at the filings today. There are.
But it's the whole, and I appreciate that. It's the whole solar thing though, because I've got a small one in my backyard and I got in under the wire. Now, will they change that where they're paying me the higher rate? And you could only put up so much because they don't want
Are you a
to?
customer of Excel?
No, I'm
No, I
My
didn't think
Energy.
so.
I'm
Yeah.
My Energy. And so the whole solar industry, they made it sound too good to start with and they wanted everybody to go on it. And- Right, right. And yep. And now they're trying to back off of that sweet deal.
It's at 40%.
40%.
The city did 40%? Okay.
It never worked without taking other people's money.
Well,
That's the
yes.
thing.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
They just took it from us. And now they're saying,
Experimental.
yeah, they took it from us and then they sent it over here.
Yep.
Of course,
But I smile when the sun shines.
exactly.
That's good. That's good.
You know,
So
we all paid it. You know,
I
that's
think-
the thing.
I think the question is they have extended the deadline for comment. Anyone can make a comment. The letter that I've written is for me alone. The question is there time for the board as a whole to weigh in and submit a letter?
Do you know what the deadline is?
Yes, January 8th.
Oh, January.
Yes.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
Yeah.
or-
You were with the utilities. You got history here.
I work for the Minnesota Public Utilities Commission, so I have great respect for them, but I also know how they work. So,
Do whatever they
and
want.
actually, and I shared this with Commissioner Meyer as well as Maureen, that my husband Carl was the Attorney General assigned to the commission and worked a lot with electrical utilities. I did telecommunications, so that's how we met, but I won't tell you that story. But anyways, I reached out to the Attorney General's office because I wanted to find out who was the Attorney General assigned to the PUC. Because I think it's important to contact them from that route. Because, I mean, sending a letter is great, but if we can find out what's really going on, and there's lots of different theories about this because it's not really Excel that, I mean, Excel has way too much power from the solar now, and that's why they're,
Mhm.
and it's really the solar producers who, or the solar companies that are kind of also in a bind here. But so I would like to offer me continuing this path. I did get a reply back, and this was from the chief of staff of Attorney Ellison's office, because I know him from the past too. And just, communicate with this attorney who's assigned to the Public Utilities Commission. There's also, the Department of Commerce has an energy division as well.
Mhm.
So, and they have an attorney general. And one of the things that the board might want to consider doing is actually intervene in this as a party and maybe group the whole AMC people. I mean, I'm throwing this out as a discussion. I'm not, because every county pretty much was hit with, save money, do this.
What do you mean, intervene, sue them? Tell them you
Well,
can't do this?
become
We're
a
gonna sue you.
party, intervene, and I mean, you can file a comment and then the staff looks at the comments and makes a staff report. That's how we used to do it. Okay. We
Okay.
also had public hearings, which I think they should have a public hearing about this
Yeah,
across the state. And they had public hearings at different locations. But intervening is saying that, and again, I need to do more look at this. I can also tell you the school board, and maybe Dwayne knows a little bit more about this too, but, Carl's on the school board and they're looking at this too, because the school has
They
a
got
lot of
some.
Yeah,
solar. too.
as are a number of school
Yeah,
districts.
Yeah.
yeah.
Number of
So I mean, there's this whole group of school districts, counties, cities, you name it,
mhm.
that would have an interest in this and were kind of promised, savings and then now, whoops.
Yeah, oops.
So, yeah. So
Yeah, he used to do.
mhm.
I'll give him a call, say, quick,
Sure.
we're gonna
Yeah.
change.
Better get Chad on that one. I gotta walk in there to click OK.
Yeah, and that's the other thing, if you know anybody who's on the commission.
Yes, well,
Public
Joe
utilities.
Sullivan. You remember Joe?
The name's familiar.
Joe
Ran for CD1.
Yes,
Not actually, yeah.
yes to all that, and maybe also share the letter with our representatives, Mr. Plowski, Mr. Graskowski,
Yep.
Mr. Jacobs, Mr. Miller, et cetera, as well.
The question I have is, and this is just of interest to me. Let's just say that does pass. Excel has got to be claiming some sort of a hardship to get out of this contractual agreement to some extent, right?
Their complaint is, it's in our,
Costs too much.
Yeah, cost.
in the
That's what I'm
pack,
saying.
it's in the.
So,
packet.
They wanna
but so
change the
those,
rate,
so they want to change the rate to lower
Right.
the cost. And if, let's just say we win and they don't change the rate, who picks up the tab? It's going to go
The
on,
rest of the,
it's going to go on to all the,
Mhm.
those that
All the
didn't sign
people.
up, yeah,
it's going to
early.
go, it's going on to everybody else that
Yep.
didn't sign up for this
Yep.
program. So those people are going to get punished for people that put solar in.
To my way of thinking, if anyone should benefit, should be the taxpayers.
Right. Mhm.
Well, that's just it. Otherwise, the county absorbs it and then the taxpayer doesn't have to, which ultimately is still the taxpayer.
There you go.
Yep,
So
exactly.
it really didn't save anybody anything.
Just beware of what you sign up for. It might not be the
That's it.
same in a few years.
Ultimately, the whole thing cost everybody money.
Yes,
Who will
big
work on
time.
the letter? Chris, you will, or Chris and Maureen?
You have a copy of what I
I
wrote?
have,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean,
Mine is
I
very
can-
simple. I don't try to
Right.
make any big, I
Right.
just say, no,
and
don't
I
do
can
this
make
to
some
us.
suggestions.
It's
too
bad for
on
us.
We could also start with the city as a starting point and not use verbatim, but with the city's letter as well.
that. Yeah. Mhm.
Combine
Thank
the
you,
two.
Carl. That'd be
Oh,
awesome.
yeah. No, I love working there, so now, yeah. okay. That was before I went to law school and became a lecturer.
But didn't they
Sorry.
just ask for a general rate increase? Didn't I read like
They
8% or
made a
something?
proposal, right?
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, and those have almost always
Go through.
go through. I
Sometimes
think
they get half.
maybe maybe
but-
they get half of
right.
three quarters.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Thanks, everybody. Okay, item 1.3, discuss potential resolution in support of legislation for training and certification for dispatchers. So I did spend a little bit of time, I did a partial shift at dispatch a few weeks ago and sat with the supervisor, Jennifer
Jennifer.
Lavala. Yeah. And we talked just a little bit about this, but I'm certainly not an expert. I think what I would love for us to do, she talked to me about how important first responders are and how really those folks on the phone are a first responder, not just a receptionist. And certification and training would help from the perspective of when you hire someone, you would have someone that you knew had all the appropriate training. Because they don't just answer the phone and coach people, they also do a number of tasks for the sheriff's department and the police department, and not just opening the doors, but also doing plate searches and license searches and a number of things. And there are legal protocols that go with that. Anyway, so what I was thinking is, do you think we could, the legislative session doesn't start till I think February 12th, so we have time to write a letter of support. Could we have maybe the sheriff and Jennifer and maybe even Ben Klinger, if they want to, just kind of share with us why they think this would be important and what it means?
Okay, yesterday at the Southeast Minnesota Emergency Communications Board, which is, 9, 10 counties, we did take action and supported it as a group. Part of it is trying to standardize some of the basics of the job so that everybody, has a basic level to start off with a certification. So if you hire somebody that maybe worked at another county, the basis is the same, but every county does something a little bit different.
They kind of all have their own protocol and this
right.
kind of just
Yep.
standardizes.
Yeah. So primarily, probably I asked who was going to do the training, and they said there's some things online and maybe the technical colleges would pick up some type of curriculum so people could do this. It does move them up professionally to a higher level of, with a certificate, you get a higher, seems like it's a higher grade in the union system. And then they are ultimately looking for higher, more benefits with quote professionalism. So just realize that, it's probably the right thing to do, but it may come with a price tag. In my opinion, because we've talked at this regional radio board, communications board, is that we need to do more regionalization of things. And at some point we may need to share, some dispatch functions and things like that. And that way, if you know that they have, the people in your neighboring county have the same basic skill set, it will be easier to transition in and out and do things
And
together.
we had already asked Jennifer to come talk to us about what regionalization means, because she had talked to me about how we're already sharing software and hardware.
Right, we're
So
doing it. Yeah.
She's coming back to do that anyway.
Yep,
So.
yep. Her perspective and my perspective are probably a little different, but that's okay.
Yeah, well,
because
because you serve different roles.
This group is primarily the county commissioners from each county, and usually there's somebody from law enforcement, but Winona County hasn't been as
To be
active.
honest, we need you both, right?
Yeah, well, yeah.
We need commissioners and we
balance.
need dispatch.
Right.
I'm sorry, Josh.
That's fine. I was on the same, is there ever any talk of, having kind of that more of a bigger, broad outreach for one, dispatch type system? That's kind of what I was bringing up rather than everybody redundantly doing it. So.
Another aspect to consider is if it's going to be a pre-employment condition, it'll also narrow our pool.
Yeah.
Because we teach and train people to become dispatchers. It's not normally that we're getting somebody from another organization who is already a dispatcher. So be cognizant that if we make it a prerequisite, it will narrow our pool.
Well, and so that was part of our discussion is, you're right, our workforce is stretched the way it is. And so they would probably have a period of time to obtain this. And there's some things online that they, training and such that they can currently do. So you're right, we did address that. It's not gonna improve the pool. It's gonna limit the pool.
Okay.
That is, no, I mean,
Oh, can I see?
just that they have a time frame in which to obtain it.
Mhm.
Well, it would have to be statutorily approved, I think. I think the legislature has to take action to make it a certification.
Well, if they're going to do across the board,
Yeah.
but as an organization
If you
or
want to
as
require it.
neighboring counties, we can do that. It's just not going to be
And
required by law.
I want to say, I think the
The intent
Intent is
make
to
it-
have it statewide,
Right.
uniformly statewide.
So Chris, you want a resolution and to have Jennifer and Ron or come and talk, or is it two different things?
I wanted to have them talk and then we'll decide. It sounds like
Yeah.
probably we'll support a resolution, but I felt like if we wanted to get something from experts, that it wasn't me.
Okay.
That we should ask them.
And we did ask her to come, didn't we? After
Yeah,
the
and
first
she's
of the
coming
year?
anyway because
Yeah.
she's going to talk to us about regionalization.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
So just a sidebar, be careful what you wish for.
No.
You're asking the government to get involved and create rules.
Yeah.
You're asking for it in the long run,
Yeah.
just saying.
No, you're
Word of
right.
caution.
You're right.
I spent about an hour in dispatch today
Did ya?
in Houston,
Oh,
But-
okay.
fixing the lock.
Ah,
Well, when I was there was a kitchen fire in one of the dorms at Winona State. And they had to call the fire department. And when I asked Joel Cochran last night at the lighting of the
Menorah.
menorah, and he's like, yeah, that happens more than you would think. He said, sometimes I have all the kids come out and I give them a lecture about how to cook a pizza because clearly they don't know.
it's allowed. We couldn't even have popcorn poppers in our dorm rooms back in the day. It was like, no. And who can't smell popcorn down the hall of a dorm, you know?
So for clarification, we are to request the sheriff, Jennifer, and perhaps Ben to come and speak?
Yeah.
Or
I
was
mean,
there not a direction here?
yeah, that's what I thought. Well, I asked each of them, did they think this was worthwhile? Because I don't know about it. And they said they were all very enthusiastic. So I don't care. Who do we want to hear from? Those three?
Or we can ask them and then they can figure out who wants to come.
Yeah, I don't know if we necessarily need to hear all three, but maybe a
Yeah.
common consensus, one of them
Okay,
is the spokesperson.
okay.
And I mean, I think it's a good idea to listen, but I'm also prepared to support a resolution just based on what you've already been saying. But we can also wait.
I'd like to know a little bit more because I do allude to the, I am from the government, I'm here to help.
Mhm.
You know, just, I don't disagree with that, but I can also see the benefit in this, so.
Okay, so those are all the items. That means we're ready to adjourn. So I'm
of a lot of information. Anything else,
Nope.
Commissioner Meyer? Okay,
Great.
all right, thank you.
So
All right,
do you want us to move
no, then we'll go to the consent
Okay, I'm sorry.
business.
Yep.
Okay, consent business, 4.1, approved grant contract for child and teen checkups, administrative services, medical assistant, eligible childbirth 20 through 20 years of age. And then, do we want to do each one individually? They're grants. I would prefer to do them individually, I guess.
If there are
So,
questions.
Yeah, are there any questions on that one? That's a long-term child and teen checkup.
I'll move to approve item 4.1.
I'll second.
Okay, all right, we have a motion to approve 4.1. Commissioner Vagley, second by Commissioner Meyer. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Okay, 4.2, approved memorandum of agreement with Southeast Minnesota, Minnesota Responds Reserve Corps Administration. And this is just keeping a log of all the volunteers and having it immediately available for situations.
I'll move to approve item 4.2.
Okay, all right, we have a motion by Commissioner Vagley, second by Commissioner Elsing to approve the memorandum agreement with Southeast Minnesota. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. Okay, approved. 4.3, approved Minnesota Department of Health Community Health Board Grant Project. Agreement for Center of Disease Control Crisis Response Cooperative Agreement. COVID-19 Public Health Workforce Supplemental Funding. And this is, again, paperwork. Correct, Melanie? It's a reporting mechanism that we need to continue to do?
So this is one of the many COVID-19 grants that we received during the pandemic. And this agreement is extending the timeframe of when we can spend it into June 30th of 2020. 1 second. Actually to March 31st of 2026.
Oh, okay.
How much we have left?
And do we have,
We have about $200,000 left.
oh,
Yeah,
okay.
nice.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. And did the parameters change what it can be spent for now, right?
Yes, it's been
much
expanded
broader.
to include well-being of public health staff.
Okay, all right. So will we, I guess if we got that dollars, will we come up with a plan? Are we working on a new plan or an additional plan?
Mhm.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, if not, entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve 4.3.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Meyer, seconded by Commissioner Olson to approve the Community Health Board Grant Project Agreement for Center Disease Control. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. All right. Thank you. General business, you got the floor. We got a couple minutes. Anything you want to alert us to today?
We're wrapping up the year. So the Foundational Public Health update, we're supposed to be hearing in January of what the confirmed equation is, and we'll hopefully get the amount that Winona County will be awarded. There's also the emergency management funding that will support our public health emergency preparedness grant that we should be hearing about here shortly. And then it's annual reporting season. So that's what we're busy doing.
All right.
Yes.
Yes. And I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I would say, good work on the community health improvement plan.
Oh, thank you.
And you're moving into kind of a new phase with the meetings. You have the plan put together.
Yes, so all 4 committees decided to approve the living document of the draft work plan. And then so we've moved from the planning stage to the implementation stage. And then we did the community health improvement engagement survey from October to mid-November. And I'm proud to say we have like 393 responses. So that will sort of direct what our priorities are in that work plan and what we're going to work on.
Thank you.
Yeah,
All
my
right.
pleasure.
Okay. Well, I would put a request in for some snow so
Right.
that we can, the community can revel in the winter activities.
Yes.
It made me a little nervous. I was going through Rochester with the meeting the other day and I saw some gentlemen going out on a little pond that had a very thin layer of ice. And I thought, oh, please,
Yeah.
why?
Mm.
Why are you out there? But we actually need winter
No fish worth my life.
No fish is worth my
Mhm.
my
So
life.
Melanie's in charge of snow? I wasn't
She's
aware
in
of that.
charge, yeah, public health. I mean, get them out, get them moving. It's
All
that-
right,
It's that other duties as assigned.
Mhm.
It's in every job description, correct?
making it
See, I
snow.
can just throw it at anything, other duties
I'll
as
have to
assigned.
make it snow on the alfalfa fields and the snowmobile trails. That's it. Everything
Okay.
else can
Yeah.
stay done.
I'll try my best.
All right, thank you. Any other business to come before the health board? All right, not entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Vagley, second by Commissioner Olson to adjourn. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. We're adjourned.
We start our meetings with a public comment period. And so if there are folks in the audience, including folks who might be attending, would like to share some thoughts with us, please, it is appropriate to do so now. Please step forward to the podium if you're here in the audience. Unmute yourself if you're online. And kindly limit your comments to 2 minutes. Thanks.
Linda Johnson, 32530 Bobcat Road, La Crescent. I am here to speak on agenda item 9.1, the 2024 budget, or otherwise known as how the county board spends our tax dollars. Taxes never seem to go down. However, sometimes taxes go up for reasons that are quite mystifying. I've noticed that the Winona County Board likes to spend our tax money very freely. At a county board meeting earlier this fall, you, the county board, felt very generous with our tax dollars, and you decided to give several outside organizations a 5% increase over the amount that they had requested. Some of these organizations have thousands of dollars in reserve and many ways to raise money. These are nonprofit organizations. I don't think our county board should be forcing taxpayers to fund these organizations. Oh, you said we need to fund them and give them more because there is inflation and they do good things and they probably haven't requested an increase for years. Well, you know what? I've noticed there's inflation too. And I try to do good things. And I'm here to ask you for a 5% decrease in my taxes instead of the 11% that showed up on my proposed ones. I would like to thank the 2 board members who did not vote for this reckless use of unrequested taxpayer money. And I ask you to let the taxpayers choose if they want to fund these organizations. Steve Forbes once said, "The politicians say we can't afford a tax cut. Maybe we can't afford the politicians." Thank you.
Thanks. Is there anyone else here in the audience or participating over the internet that would like to share some thoughts with us during the public comment period? Is there anyone here in the audience or participating on Ring Central that would like to share some thoughts with us during this public comment period?
Just a question, how do we see them on the screen here? Will they, because I see there's 9 participants, but and one
It's because we have
chat.
the clock on. When the
Yeah.
clock is up, it covers them.
Okay,
So if you're online, please unmute yourself and
and do we know what's
catch our
on the,
attention.
chat? There's one on the chat.
Those are-
That's from earlier.
Yeah,
Okay,
the
okay.
when Mr. Howard couldn't
Okay.
unmute himself.
All right.
So for the final time, is there anyone here in the audience or participating over the internet that would like to share some thoughts with us during this public comment period? Please step forward to the podium, tell us your name and address, and kindly limit your comments to 2 minutes if you can.
Hi, I'm Lynn Reddig, 24620 Gilmore Valley Road. Just on the property tax issue, our taxes went up $1,000 this year. We have a few farms and a rental property, and of course, the home we live in. And to me, that's a lot of money. And then I look at the way some of the money gets spent through this board and, you know, like handing out money to nonprofits like Halloween candy and, you know, here, take a piece and I'll take another handful just for the heck of it. I mean, people should be able to choose who they donate money to as far as nonprofits go. It shouldn't be decided by the government. We maybe already have donated to those nonprofits, so you don't need to do it again with our tax money. So that's just my thoughts. You know, if you're going to tax us that much, use it wisely, not just hand it out without taxpayers agreeing to it. Thank you. That's all.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
So one more final time, and just to note that there will be a public hearing related to the budget, and that will be happening at 7:00. But this is our open public comment period. So if there, for the last time, if there's anyone here in the audience or on Ring Central that would like to participate in public comment, please step forward to the podium or unmute your microphone and speak a little bit so that we can get your attention, or you can get our attention. Seeing no one and hearing nothing, public comment is closed. We have some prior board minutes next on the agenda.
Move to approve?
I'll second that.
Commissioner Olson has moved, Commissioner Vagley has seconded approval of the county board minutes of November 28th, 2023. Is there? I am going to bring this meeting of the Winona County Board back from recess. Would someone, in order to open the public hearing, we would need a motion.
I'll move to open the public. Go ahead, Commissioner Ward.
I'll move to open the public hearing regarding our budget, 2024 budget.
I'll
and
second
fee
that.
Schedule.
Okay. Commissioner Ward has moved and Commissioner Vagley has seconded opening the public hearing. This public hearing is on the 2024 budget, the 2024 fee schedule, and the transportation sales tax projects. Is there further discussion? Then I have a couple comments.
Just, I was reminded in our audience that sometimes you have difficulty hearing us. So if you can't, we'll try and use the mics. There is no volume control that we can adjust. If you can't hear us, just stand up or wave your arms or something or say, can't hear you, please, because we don't know that you can't hear us. Thank you.
I wanted to make some clarifications. In June of each year, the county board has something called the Board of Appeal and Equalization. And at that meeting, we hear from citizens who are concerned about their property values. And so the process for that is to contact the assessor's office, and the assessor will meet with you to try to resolve any issues over the valuation of your property. And if that isn't successful, then you can come to the Board of Appeal and Equalization in June. I just wanted to clarify that this hearing is about the budget, the fee schedule, and the transportation sales tax projects, not your property values. There is a separate process for adjustments to and hearing complaints on what the property valuations are. And so the assessor is not present tonight. With the information about how the state of Minnesota regulates property values and the rules within which we have to abide. So that is a separate process. So if there's no further,
And there was a sign up sheet for that.
yes, I have the sign, well, the sign up sheet is for this hearing.
True. There's one if they want the assessor to contact them.
Okay, so do you think that means that, no, it says it's a comments sign-in sheet. They both say comments sign-in sheet. This is true, that it does say
Remember,
that,
the assessor will contact you.
right? But they still, it says that it is.
Right, but
Yes,
if they want the assessor to contact them, they need to sign that sheet.
Right.
If they want to.
but this is not a meeting at which we make adjustments to property values. Okay, so if there's no further discussion from the board, I would ask for the vote to open the public hearing. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
If anyone is opposed, please say nay. The public hearing is open. I will call for those folks who have signed up. please come to the podium and tell us your name and address. And you have 2 minutes to share your thoughts with us. And if you didn't sign up, but you still want to make a comment after those folks who've signed up you're welcome to come up to the mic. So Laura McCauley?
I'm sorry.
I just signed up to argue about that. Okay,
Yeah.
so you did not want to speak. Yeah, Commissioner. Ward.
A question. Yes, and so, you're right, you have a right to.
Yes,
you do to do that. I totally agree. In the past, we've had some kind of handouts. Did we not prepare any kind of handout with what our budget is or any graphs or anything? No. Can we put at least some of the budget or the cover sheet or something, the presumptions, is there a possibility to put some of that memo that you sent out so people know what we're talking about, or no? Pat?
Come up and do some of the.
Well, could we have kind of like a little, preliminary or something that,
Do you want to actually have the individual speak first and then that part of it, or?
You've already opened the public hearing.
Oh, wait, did we vote? We haven't voted yet, so we have not actually
Yeah,
opened the
yeah.
public hearing.
I mean, I'm not sure if the people really understand how much we're discussing or what we're discussing, and I'm seeing the head shake. So maybe could we ask Pat to give us a little prelude of?
Introduction.
Thank you.
Okay. The budget actually starts on page 61. This is actually a joint effort between myself and Ms. Holte. Ms. Holte has kind of drafted out a letter here that kind of explains a lot of the items and what's actually in the budget. I'm going to kind of skip over that part of the letter, but if you go to page 164,
And Heidi's catching up to us, I think.
Yeah, great.
this is a document that actually just,
She's going to rotate it.
Yeah.
There we go.
this is a document that actually presents the revenues and expenditures and then the levy that is actually in the budget at the present time. And you will see that there's the general fund, just as an example, the general fund has a revenues of 25,097,288. The expenditures are 24,966,428, and the levy in the general fund is 14,210,094. And so you can kind of just see all that, and it kind of talks about the revenues and expenditures for grand total are 68,143,16 for revenues. The expenditures are 67,935,790, and the levy at this present time would be 24,899,517 for all the funds. Then the next document, if you go to it, kind of breaks it down just a little bit more. This is actually looking at a revenue and comparison just between the funds. And you'll see the same numbers, the 68,144 in the 2024 draft budget. I guess it's hard to read up there. And then actually the 67 million for the expenditures compared to 23. The increases for each of the funds. And at the present time, you'll notice that there's 204,526 of basically expenses, revenues over expenses. So we actually have more revenues in the budget at the present time than expenses of that 204,526. Then if you go to the next document, this would then break that out just a little bit more. That kind of has each department in each fund and what actually is occurring. And I'm not going to read through all those numbers because there's like, I think 5 or 6 pages. But again, when you go to the very bottom, it has that the total expenses are 67,935,790. And then if you go to the next document after that, it's just kind of, this one it's the same document that we just talked about, but it's only looking at items that actually increased by over 10+%. And so you'll see that which ones have increased. I was just waiting for Heidi to. you'll see that that list is kind of broken down, and now these are the ones that are over the like 10%, and there's a little small description on the side of what makes up some of those. Like if you look at the economic, the very last one in that big box, it says economic opportunity job training. It increased by 37%. But actually what it is, there's grant revenue that actually matches that same expenditure on that side. And if you kind of look at a lot of it, you'll see as wages and benefits. I think there was one where we had the RAP position became a county employee versus actually a grant position. That would be the fourth one from the top. So that's kind of just an explanation of those items. Then if Heidi goes to the next document, this is the agency funding. And now there's I think it's on page 174, if that helps. This document is agency funding, and these are the agencies that we do not have a contract with, but these dollar amounts are in the budget. You'll see that Historical Society was requesting 70,000. It's actually in the budget for 57,250. Fair was requesting 26,550, and that's 26,550 is in the budget. So those are the agency items. Then if we go to the next document, this is the capital request of what's in the 2024 budget. And if you, in column, I would say that's column C, that's a 2024 request. The requested amount on that was like over $3 million. We actually went through, made some adjustments. We got the adjustments down to what's in the actual budget is $1,204,972. You can see that we have a snowplow in the capital, a loader, and it's a used loader, 2 shouldering machines, and so on forth. And then the items in the sheriff's office, which is maybe about halfway down, maybe a little more than half the way down. It's the one that has a lot of description. It says funded by public safety dollars. Those items are in the capital request, but those are funded with the with the public safety dollars that were received from the state, which are a one-time funding mechanism. And I think in total we got about 837,000. And then you can see that how it's actually funded with public safety dollars, and then actually what is actually levied as 551. There's 100 of those public safety dollars. We have them split in our budget. We have 653,972 in the capital fund, and we have 183,589 in the general fund because we are actually funding that Central Square software system. So that's being purchased with the public safety dollars. Then if we go to the next document, that actually is a more expanded of the capital plan that we have, and it's for 10 years. There are some items that are out for 10 years that we have scheduled, and some we only have scheduled out through 2025. This is a working document that department heads will work on throughout the years, but this is kind of where our capital plan sits at the present time. Marie, do you want me to go through the road, just mention the road and bridge? I mean, it's part of the public hearing, but then the next document will be when we get to talking about the road and bridge capital projects. That's actually in the next couple pages. Then if we go to page 184, this is where our present levy is, and there's kind of some some choices that are on here. Right now, we have the 9.88% in the budget, which actually at the present time with the 9.88, that actually has a excess of revenues of about $204,000, 526 in the budget. There's the one like right in there's one right in the middle that talks about it 8.98. That would be if we actually took those cost savings and reduced our levy down to 8.8. And then the item that's in option 2 would be as if we reduce the levy down to 9.4, and then 0.48 of it would actually be or the saving, whatever the savings would be additional, the 95,754 could be put into like the capital fund that would actually help fund the items that we'll be looking in 2025 if you look back at your CIP plan. I'm gonna skip that one. And then the Minnesota, then we'll go to page 185. That's actually in 186. This was provided by Micah. It actually was saying is where the county rates on our levy and by per capita. Then the document right after that, which is a large document, which is page 187.
Can I pause you for a second, Mr. Moga? Just to make sure that the audience is aware that from the MICA document, that ranking, which is not, it doesn't involve comparable counties, it involves all 87 counties. Winona County is currently, in the prior year, was the 3rd lowest county in terms of taxation per capita. This year will move to number 4, the 4th lowest. Is that
Correct.
the correct description of that?
They're saying per capita, it's like $500 per person.
Although I would encourage commissioners to hold their comments till our
Right.
discussion period.
Thank you.
Because I want to move on with the public
Absolutely.
hearing as soon as we can.
Yep. And then the next document, which I will don't plan to go through, is actually our budget, which is about 130 some pages. That's in the
Thank you for
document.
not going through that.
Yeah. And then
All
And then-
welcome to come.
and then the other one after that would be the fee schedule. And there's 2 versions of the fee schedule in the budget. One with markups, one with no markups. And there will be 3 changes that were brought to our attention after the document was done. If you look at page 345, under vital records, there was a non-certified copy that's $26. It actually should be $13. And then there's 2 items, 2 lines after that says state office only. That's going to be striked, and those will be changed for the 28th meeting. Any questions?
Just for the public, you went through a lot. This is if you go to the county website, you have to go to agendas. And then you click on the Winona County Board and agenda and follow the little prompts. But all this information is in the agenda.
It starts on page 160.
Yeah.
Thank you, Pat.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, so did we or did we not move to vote to open the public hearing?
We've moved in second and we've not voted.
It didn't vote.
Okay, so all those in favor of opening the public hearing, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
If anyone's opposed, please say nay. The public hearing is open. I will work on these sheets. If you don't wish to comment because you really just wanted the assessor to talk to you, that's fine. So Laura McCauley, and you did not really want to speak? Great.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Gerald Lempo.
He just stepped out. He wants to speak to the assessor.
Okay, Dave McCann.
Can I
Please.
speak? You want-
Yes,
Yes.
please come to the podium, tell us your name and address, and try to limit your comments to 2 minutes.
Okay, I've got a sheet here. One of you can follow along. I've talked to Marcia quite a bit. I'm with the Dresbach Town Board. I'm the chairman. And
This is your tax statement?
Yeah.
Okay,
but as you can see there, my property taxes on my home went up 87, proposed 87.4%.
That is a heck of a lot.
Yeah. And one thing that I question on here right away, which makes us look bad, we worked real hard on our budget. If you go down the line, there were 2023 Dresbach Township said at your annual meeting. In 2023, it was $298.20. In 2024, it went up to $465.38, which is roughly 52%. And, I know you've got a new auditor treasurer, but somebody is fudging the numbers here. Our levy in 2022 was 256,000. 2023, it lowered to $254,988. And 2024 was $254,057. So, I mean, you want to put your phone number on that? You can answer my residents when they're chirping, that's wrong. It makes you look bad. It makes us look bad and makes you. But this 87.4 increase is craziness.
Well,
You know.
and I can tell you, we did not increase the levy 87%.
Yeah.
So I do see that your property values doubled,
Yeah, you want to buy a 80-year-old house?
more than doubled. So I wonder if there's an issue with that. Our auditor treasurer is here and she would like to, do you want to see this statement?
I looked at I've been spending the last few hours on Dresbach and I just responded to Kim.
Yeah.
Who had emailed me and Marcia
Yeah.
for Dresbach. Kim spoke to the assessor back in April about Dresbach's property values and got a misunderstanding, I think. Dresbach was far below the benchmarks where they have to be. So a lot of values in Dresbach did go up. Your levy did not. I
Yeah.
looked at the year
Yeah.
prior and this proposed, and it went down 931 or just under $1,000. I don't remember it off the top of my head. But not all the values across Dresbach went up the same amount. So if your value went up 23% and somebody else's went up only 10%, then your share of the pie of Dresbach's levy got bigger. There are some residents within Dresbach, and I was, again, scoping them when Kim emailed me, that some of the values didn't have that big of a jump, and therefore your share got bigger, their share of the levy got smaller. That's why some residents are seeing an increase, even though your levy did decrease. Yeah. I hope I'm not muddying it. Minnesota tax law is very
No, it's fine.
It's
unnecessarily complicated.
Yeah. And the assessor is not here tonight, but I did print out the notes that he gave us from that meeting that happened in June.
Yeah.
Right? And he's the one to explain this best, but the state of Minnesota gives him a set of percentages. And if it is based on the sales that happen of that class of property. And so if people are willing to buy parcels, let's say of wooded property that are similar to maybe what your property is, your property has to be revalued so that it's within like 91 to 93% of that value.
Well,
And
you've got to remember on my place, and a lot of the residents, I've got other residents here where there's been no improvements. I can see if there are improvements. And you got to remember, we're not on the river, we're on the poor side of the tracks. We're, some people on the river, it's really increased when they pay $350 40,000 for a half acre lot.
It isn't necessarily about the home. And for example, wooded property went from 3,000 to 4,500 an acre.
Yep.
Yeah. And so then that causes a big jump, but we must abide by the laws of the state of Minnesota. But Mr. Conway is the one who could better explain that.
Yes. And Dave and I talk, and we both don't like the property tax system. We agree totally on that. Chelsea, I have a question, and maybe you can't answer this. Dresbeck is unique. It has some of the most expensive houses and some of the lowest houses in one little community. So we always say it's sales, and I have to justify it's sales. But do we compare sales of $200,000 homes as a category and then $500,000 homes as a separate category, or are they just homes? Do you,
That's a John question.
Okay.
For the evaluation portion and how deeply the state breaks it down.
down?
If
Okay.
it's just Dresbeck Township as a whole, less Dakota and La Crescent, or if they break it down to categories
Right.
like that.
That's-
he has to
that's
bring
something
up
we-
compliance.
Yeah. And he always says he can throw out the high and the low, but yeah,
But there were only, I look back at
there
that,
weren't that many sales and
6
Yeah.
for Dresbeck.
Yeah.
So if those all sold very high and it swung everybody else up,
yeah, that's something we have to ask
I was
John.
combing it.
I know there were some up on the ridge. There was on Highway 1 up there.
Yep.
And they claim they went up and some of them went down. I mean, some of them were in the 900,000. Richard Smith's, his property value went down actually. So I definitely want them out there, but I mean, I don't know how you can think anybody that's retired can put up with these increases.
Right. And even if there wasn't an increase in taxes at all,
Yeah.
your tax would still increase because of the big change of your property value.
But the rest of it's just fuel on the fire when we keep increasing taxes.
But I mean,
And
I thought us as a town board, we've really tried hard to keep our budget down there. I thought we did a pretty good job, and it just frustrates me when the state comes along. I know this virus thing said everything, but I mean, I'll give back my surplus check to them gladly. I'll pay them in cash. I mean, anytime you get something from the state, you better watch it because you're going to get whammied. I mean, it's
Yeah.
crazy.
Thank you for serving. And, I've attended a lot of the, just even outside of this forum, other township meetings. It always amazes me how, for the most part, how tight townships are.
Yeah.
They're very tight.
so I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
because
mean,
this
it's
is,
just-
I understand how you feel. Of
Yeah.
course, 87% is outrageous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can keep that. You can put it in the newspaper or whatever.
Well, there's the reporter. He might want it.
We need, Dave,
I want that
We
on the
need-
front page, Chris.
we need the townships to lobby the legislators too, because they set these rules.
Yeah.
The county has not much flexibility in the rules.
Well, election times are coming up and
They
some
are.
people better think when they vote. It's very important.
And
Yeah.
I mean, I can tell you that both Dresbach and Richmond had the biggest increases,
Yeah.
followed by Rolling Stone, and then the city of Dakota, the city of Stockton, and the cities of La Crescent. So
They didn't put your phone number on here though, Dave. You're
No,
lucky.
they didn't, but I was waiting for you to.
You can give them
Okay,
mine.
thank you for your time.
thank you for coming. Is Dale done here?
Yeah.
Please step forward.
I had a question.
He just-
Does the county have surplus of funds like the state of Minnesota does? Or are we just breaking even?
Well, there are two kinds of reserves. There are restricted reserves. For example, we have a sales tax that can only be spent on highway improvements.
Yep.
So that there are funds there, but we are not allowed to spend them legally on anything but the roads. So we do have an unrestricted reserve. The state of Minnesota has, by statute, it has to be at least 3/12 of our annual budget so that we could pay at least 3 months of bills because we only get taxes twice a year. And we have adopted that. So we have the lowest possible reserve that we are allowed to have by the state.
Okay.
No, we don't have,
Did that answer your?
we don't have
Well,
17 billion. in-
Minnesota has
No.
Yeah, no,
billions of dollars in excess.
Yep. No.
It's too bad some of the counties can't get some of that.
You know what?
Instead of refunds to the people of the state, it should go to our school districts first
Yes,
and our counties second and our townships third.
I completely agree with you.
And this problem with your budgets would be a whole lot simpler. So that's all I got to say.
I agree with you. Thank you.
We'll sign your petition.
Yeah. Okay, so Gerard signed up again, so this is the individual who's gone. So Lynn Reddick, would you like to speak again? Let's bend that down.
Lynn Reddick, 24620 Gilmore Valley Road. Just to add to what I'd said previously with our rental property, we have to consider that during COVID, we tried really hard as landlords. We did not raise our rent. But the last couple of years, we raised it just minimally, very minimally. And the second time we did it, our tenants complained. So we said, well, we won't do it again the next year, which is this coming up 2024. Well, now our taxes went up considerably. And so we as landlords, we just have to absorb that. I mean, we could raise it anyway, but we don't want to go back on our word. And these are people, they're working people. I don't know what their raises might be over the year. I know as farmers, it's really hard because crops might go up, then everything else does. Land goes up, inputs go up, and when the crops come back down, inputs and land stay right up there. And so, we're absorbing all of that. And then our taxes go up. And I don't know if it was because of our property values going up or the levy. I don't know what caused all this, but it gets really a pinch to try to make all this work. So just asking you guys, and I don't envy your position to try to figure out all these numbers and what money goes where, but just please do it wisely. I mean, I mentioned the nonprofit thing. Nonprofits have their own ways of making money. I don't think that's the government's place to be handing out taxpayer money in those situations. And there's other things too. We need roads. The road I live on is in terrible condition.
If you live on Gilmore Valley Road, we know that that's true.
Yes. And I literally think it ruined one of our vehicles. And I'm sure it's very hard on all the tractors, and the tractors are hard on the road when it gets bumpy and it's all just one vicious circle. But that's my request, is just at least consider the people that you're putting these taxes on, and that they don't always have the resources to be paying more and more and more and more all the time. It's just not there. So, please try to keep them down. And what money you do get, really consider how you're spending it. That's all I have to say. Thanks.
Thank you.
So that is anyone who has signed up. Are there other folks in the audience that would like to come make a public comment?
Well, I just wondered.
Could you please step up to the podium and please tell us your name and address? And we do try to keep your comments to 2 minutes,
I'll
but
probably be 1 minute.
if it goes on, that's okay. We'll.
My question was, the way this
Your name and
read,
address.
oh, I'm sorry, Mary Ann Garak, 1026 East Broadway.
Thanks.
And my taxes went up 30%. As a senior citizen, a widow, it's a lot of money. But the way I read on this letter, that this was a meeting for that. I didn't realize the way that our letter reads, that that's what we're here for, taxes, but apparently we're not. This is a county board meeting, right?
This is a county board meeting.
Right,
This is
okay.
hearing on our budget.
This is about our budget.
Right, so
Which is-
it doesn't, that's not the way this reads. They mailed this to us with our taxes.
Maureen, can you see what, or can we see what you have?
Saying, you want to come and, I'm sorry. Come to the meeting, here's the dates. Doesn't say anything about a county board hearing.
Well, this is the meeting to receive public feedback
Right.
on the budget.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. That's it. Oh.
Now, Chelsea, a like related to this lady's, there are programs where if your taxes, if you're a senior citizen or age, that you can file for a rebate or
Exclusion.
refund?
Can I do a plug on that?
Please.
Yes, please. I think
Yes,
we need
okay.
to educate.
I'll give you that back. Sorry. I don't want to take this from you. On the back of your tax statements every year that you get, end of March, beginning of April, there's information on both there's a senior deferral program if you qualify or are interested. But most importantly, especially for these folks with huge jumps this year, I know that there's an income phase out for a property tax return through the state of Minnesota, but there's also a special property tax return if your property tax go up in excess. I think last year it was 12%. If your taxes go up a large percentage, despite your income, you may be eligible for a property tax refund. So please go ahead and apply for those, even if you wouldn't have normally otherwise been eligible, especially if there's big hikes like this. That's a little bit of relief that
And if,
is available.
if folks want to call and get further information, can they call your office or the assessor's office?
For a property tax refund?
Yeah, to get some information about where to look or, pretty much what you said here.
Yeah, if you just search Minnesota property tax refund, I mean, we can direct them as well. And we always have a couple of the instructions and the applications if they wish to do it on paper
So
available,
it
but
wasn't on this form. It'll come on the actual property tax.
on the actual property tax,
In
those come out at the end of March, beginning of April was when those hit the mailboxes. On the back, there's different programs.
Can I ask her one question while you're there?
Sure.
Please
On
do.
mine, I noticed that homestead and exclusion just about went better than hands down.
Yeah, if your property's value is
If
too
your
high.
property goes up,
Yeah.
your
Yeah, the homestead exclusion, quick clarification, if your property isn't homesteaded and it should be, that's definitely something to contact the assessor about. But I want to explain the homestead exclusion where he's saying it dropped significantly. The homestead exclusion is an exclusion that phases out. So the higher your property value is, the lower that exclusion is going to be. They're gonna raise, I don't remember what they just went through, and I
That's
don't
not
remember.
that's not our rule. That's the state of Minnesota.
Right,
rule.
exactly.
Yeah.
It is the state of Minnesota rule. And they're raising that phase out point, but I don't know if it goes into effect this year or next year off the top of my head.
They just raised it.
Right. But it needed to be raised a long time. What's that?
You know what the value is when your homestead exclusion finally goes away then?
As for 2023 payable, it was 400 and I think 18,000, where the homestead exclusion is completely phased out.
Mine shows it's at 413 and I have no homestead exclusion on ours at all and I've been
That-
30 years.
I can go look that up and come right back if we want to proceed with the public comment.
He wants to go with, you want him to go with you? Do you need some info?
Nope.
Oh, you're
I'll
just
grab it.
looking for the,
Yep, to
the program.
phase out.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to step forward?
My name is Dan Amundson, 25990 County Road 3. I have 2 hours, right? I guess because there's a limited amount of time, I would like to ask, as our representatives, my property taxes proposed to increase 33% in the last 2 years, including this year, which is a 16% proposed increase. What are you doing to limit the county's spending to match inflation? Because right now, there's not one statistic I've seen anywhere that says inflation is 33% in the last 2 years.
Mr. Amundson, we have, Commissioner Vagley and I had both sort of asked the assessor in specific about what some of your questions were after you talked to Commissioner Vagley. And it looks to me like since you purchased the property, you bought it in 2016 and you built the house in 2017?
No, the house was there.
The house was there. So since 2017, your property has increased 144% in value.
Yeah.
And
If some of you would like to buy it, to retire a second time.
so the truth is, even if our levy was zero or negative this year, because of this increase, your taxes would likely have gone up
Well,
anyway.
I agree.
Levy is fuel on top of it. It's just.
It is.
more.
It's
It keeps
just,
compounding.
and it
that
is.
doesn't-
And I don't want to
doesn't make
go
any
through
sense.
this.
It's just adding more to it.
I don't want
I
to ever go
disagree
through
with
this
that.
again. So that's why my question is to you. What are you doing? I looked at the master plan for the county and there's not one word in there about we're going to limit the increase in spending to X percent every year. What if you asked every employee in the county for ideas on how to cut costs? You imagine all the brain power that would go towards and giving them an incentive. You save us $10,000, we'll give you $1,000. If you can't pay people enough, give them incentive to make more money on their own. I ran a business for 20 years. There's never once that I increased my expenditures by 16% without trying to generate significantly more revenue to cover that. So, and I'm surprised that this room isn't packed, to be honest with you. I've spoken with at least 20 landowners throughout the county, and they're all like, they want to burn something down. So I know this is a difficult job and we appreciate you taking the task to do this because it's a thankless job, but I'll leave it at that.
Thank you for your
Thank you.
comment.
But you could burn it down and we'll still tax you, I'm sorry.
On the ashes.
On the value of the land, unfortunately. But you're absolutely right. What have we done to keep the growth down?
Is there someone else in the audience that would like to step forward and share some thoughts with us? And please tell us your name and address. Thanks.
My name's Brad Bullard. I'm Dan's next door neighbor, 26128 County Road 3. And again, I absolutely echo Dan's last statement is thank you for doing this. It's right up there with being on the school board, I'm sure, for thanks from people. And I've never had a situation like this, but and correct me if I'm wrong in any of this, but I assume everyone's taxes are public record, basically. You can look them up by address. So I actually looked up yours, as I'm assuming other people do. Most interestingly, my taxes have gone up by $1,200 since 2020. And I'm your neighbor. You probably live 8 miles away from me, probably, which brings me to the question of, so I understand the fact that if someone's buying property near me, that my value goes up. I get that. That makes perfectly good sense. So you live 8 miles away from me, and in the amount of time my property taxes went up $1,200, yours went up, oh, I'm sorry, they went down $16.
I've been lucky.
Can you explain that?
Not really, but my neighborhood, not much sells. It's just,
Nobody has sold in our neighborhood for,
well, that's what we need to ask the assessor because he always says.
and again, I apologize because I understand the assessor's not here, which is almost incredulous that of all the meetings that he should be here. That's another question I have is why is he not here? And maybe, and I came in late, so I maybe missed that. So again, apologies.
Why have mine gone down? Over the years, I don't know how many years you compared that to. They're going.
Just since 2020.
Okay, they've gone up, they've fluctuated. I've been lucky. They've stayed really pretty.
I'm just because we have very similar sized properties, very similar sized homes. And
I don't have a front door, so I think that keeps my taxes down. And a couple of years ago, we had the township gentleman come in and he wanted to, I happened to be home, which normally I wouldn't be. And I said, he wanted to see my kitchen. I said, why do you need to see my kitchen? Well, that's part of the assessment. I said, okay, come on in and see my kitchen. We remodeled back in 1979 and 1980 when we moved there. My kitchen counter is the old orange Formica, probably should be.
And that shouldn't really factor
It
in
shouldn't,
to
no.
the,
I told him my stove, 3 burners work, the one doesn't. My refrigerator.
yeah, again, that's irrelevant.
But he wanted to come in and see my kitchen, and I questioned that myself. But it's the buildings and the property. But they tell me my value has considerably increased since.
Yeah, it has, but you're not getting, apparently not getting taxed on the increase in your value.
I'm not
So-
getting any special favors. I didn't ask for anything.
And I'm not, yeah, and I apologize if I inferred that because I didn't. But
But like I say, mine's valued at over $500,000, but it's not for sale.
neither is mine. If you want to buy mine for what it's valued at now, it is.
No, I'm not in the market. I'm not buying. I've learned my lesson. I'm not buying any more property.
Yeah, well.
No.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here in the audience that'd like to come make a public comment?
Good evening, Michael S. Camp, 26353 County Road 3. I echo what Mr. Amundson, Mr. Bullard said, and I also thank you for your service.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience? Please step forward. Tell us your name and address.
Hello, my name is Jason Spoda. I live at 31979 County Road 1. Now, I know for a fact that the appraised value of my parcel I just bought, you are saying it's worth $576,000. I just bought it for $415,000 because the market has been crashing. I've been in the building industry for a long time. We are heading for the biggest crash you have ever seen. You can add all these up. You can keep on raising. I know 2 years ago, this property got assessed for 25% of raising its taxes then. Now, 2 years later, it's another 33%. That is unjustifiable in any. That's in you're saying in 2 years, 4 years, less than 4 years, 50% increase in taxes? $8,000 for taxes on this property? I mean, now, most normal people don't make $150,000. I'm lucky I do. My wife makes a good living too. But you can't justify this for every 2 years. What, next in 2 years, I get another 25%? I'm gonna be, you're gonna get us out of a house. I mean,
Is it a house or just land?
it's a house.
It's a house.
It's a house with 5 acres. And now I'm just hearing that now I can't take my, what do you call it? My tax because it's over the 413%. That's, I mean, you guys gotta, either you gotta start cutting or something, because I have never, I used to live in Houston. I had to fight that one too. The house I just bought is from 1903. It's been paying taxes for 120 freaking years. I mean, come on. And now I mean, the other one I just did, they cut that one in half too because they said it was worth it more, and I sold it, and you can't get it. People cannot afford the 7% interest that we just got this last year and stuff like that. And we're just going to keep on adding. I know you guys do a tough job. I've been on more boards. I've been on the Wisconsin Board of Directors for LABA. I've been on the lacrosse board. I've been on so many things. It's not even funny. I know it's an increase, but just like that gentleman said over there, I was in business. I still am in business. I have never got to take and push onto the homeowner a 33% increase every 2 years. I mean, come on.
We have not raised taxes 33%.
But you are. You are. If that's what you're saying, that I have to pay more, you're raising my taxes 33%. You can say you're not raising them, but you are.
Is there anyone else here in the audience that would like to share a comment? And is there anyone who has been participating in the meeting via Ring Central that would like to speak at this public hearing? If so, please unmute yourself and say something to catch our attention. I will ask one more time. Is there anyone here in the audience that would like to make a comment? Or on the internet that would like to speak at this public hearing? Hearing no one? Oh, Chelsea would like to make a comment? Yeah, thank you.
Just following up on the question I was searching. Sorry it took me so long. I was trying to figure out when it was going into effect. So currently it phases out at 413,800. 2023 legislation raised that phase out point to 517,200, but that will not go into effect until payable 2025.
That property value.
Correct. Correct.
Is that-
Seeing no further speakers, would a motion to close the public hearing might be in order?
So moved.
I'll second that.
Okay, Commissioner Olson has moved, Commissioner Vagley has seconded, closing the public hearing. For further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. If anyone is opposed, please say nay. The public hearing is closed, so this would be a period for the board to discuss the budget. Mr. Elson, are you asking for the floor?
Yep. So one of the first things that I want to bring up, just, it's a little bit, I don't know if it's an intentional sleight of hand, but we look at 165 and we look at the revenue comparisons and it shows that it's down and it shows the expenditures are down. But in reality, when we pull that jail capital out of there, it's not. It's actually up. We're up in revenue and we're up in expenditures. And it's a little bit disheartening to see that number in there for per se the capital, because it really looks like, hey, revenue's down and expenditures are down, but that is not the truth on a percentage basis. We are up because this jail capital, that's gone now. And we're just look at what our standard basically comparisons are with that out. So really we're up 8.5% in expenditures and 10.5% in revenue. It's not a negative. We're spending more and we're collecting more. That's the reality of it. So, if I was just the common taxpayer, I'd say, oh boy, look at that. We're down and we're down. But that's not the truth. We're actually up and we're up. And so I realize that the number has to be in there, but that number skews this in a manner that looks like we're actually down. That's my first point. That if anybody is listening or online and goes on and looks at page 165 and says, hey, these things are down, they're not, they're up. And it's even line itemed out in the very last part where it says, get to the page. It's line itemed out again where it says negative, etc. What page it is here? Find it. It comes up here. 170. Be 170 in expenditures, and it says there again, grand total negative 8.81. But in reality, that's fictitious. It's actually up. Because you take the jail capital out and that skews the whole thing.
Yes,
No, go ahead if you want to.
no, go ahead.
I wanted to try to catch folks before they left. I mean, people can still contact Mr. Conway. Those are very real issues, very big concerns. Those are wild tax swings, so they can still contact Mr. Conway. That's what I was going to try to catch them on the way out. Is that I don't want them to think that they can't because he wasn't here. He's wonderful in terms of answering questions. So if anyone is still watching or listening, encourage them to contact Mr. Conway and try to get answers to those questions.
Mr. Mogan, did you want to respond? I don't fully understand what Commissioner Elsing is, his point that he's trying to make.
I, what this document is actually showing is the 23 budget to 24 budget. And we have to conclude the jail capital in there because the 23, it actually was in part of that budget. So it's actually included in there. And then now in 24, it's a 0. If we, if you wanted to look at like how much the expenditures went up, like in the general fund, overall, the expenses are up like 7.15. And then if you look in the solid waste, it's 0.19%. So, I mean, I think this is comparing, and that's the hard thing is when you're comparing one year to another, there's so many ups and, things that are so moving. And we want to try to keep things as consistent of like showing the whole budget of what actually happened. And yes, the jail did skew things for a couple of years because actually, even if you look in our budget right now, and I know that question has come up, it looks like we spent a lot more money than our budget, but it's because we have the money that we bonded for and it's sitting in one area. And then when we're actually replenishing what we actually are doing in the capital, we're pulling it from another fund. So there's like 3 funds that are going back and forth. So the expenses are looking double in the budget. But again, we want to have consistency and have everything in there. But and I kind of get what you're saying there, Josh, that number, because it went from 12 million down to 0.
Basic math.
Yeah,
There's
the
no
number.
arguing.
Yeah, the number is
All this is.
if you look at the total, but then if you look in the next document, that kind of explains what's actually happening in the expenses. Like if you look in the general fund, it's saying that the expenses are going up overall 7.15%. And if, the solid waste is 0.19 and highway is 3.29. So I mean, this kind of breaks it out, but again, it's trying to keep comparing a budget to a budget and not excluding some things, because then what would you exclude? I mean,
I would exclude I would exclude, Pat, the things that are not consistent. In the jail capital at $12 million is not a consistent thing. And when we look at a budget, we're looking at consistent income. I mean, I've managed multi-million dollar budgets for years. And I would never have that in there because it would skew. I would look at this if I had no idea what that is, and I got set down and been on the board of directors, and I've had to answer the board of directors, and that got put in front of me, and I just put something over that, and they had no clue what it was. I would say, "Oh, look at that! Our revenues are down 7%, but our expenditures are down 8.8. Good job, guys."
But I think
they managed, but that's not the case, because if we take that out, if you just simply take that out of the line item and compare it to what the normal funding is, that is actually almost a 16% swing. We go from -7 up to 8.5. Excuse me, it's actually even higher than that. It's 7 and 10. It's almost 18, almost 19% swing. And we take 8.8 plus roughly 8.5, and that's 16, almost 17%. So really, in reality, it's a 17% swing. Let's just call it 17 and 18%. When we pull the jail capital out and we just look at what are the common expenditures and what are the common revenue. Now, why was I able to grab that right away? Because I've done this enough times to understand what I'm looking at. I'm not saying I know it all, but as a common person looks at this and says, oh, is our revenue up? Nope, it's down 7%. Is our expenditures up? Nope, it's down 8%. But they're not real numbers, because in reality, it's when we pull out the capital fund, the non-continuing things that we need to fund, to me, that number is very heavily skewed. It almost looks like we're trying to save money, but we're also not taxing as much as we're not getting as much money in. The reality of it is that when you pull that out, it's significantly up on both sides. That's what I'm looking at. Okay. And I just don't think, I think the average person that doesn't know how to deduce that out would just say, we're down 7 and we're down 8. Hey, good job.
Again, I think we have comparing the total budgets, we need to keep that in. Because I mean, if we want to do that, I mean, the other thing that would be a skewing item is if you look at the road and bridge,
That's right.
we're going from $8 million of expenses to 11.2 million in expenses. And a lot of that is actually grant funded. We're getting a federal grant for, I think, one of the roads that we just talked about, the Gilmore. Also, if you look at kind of the transportation tax, we're going from 2.8 down up to 3.2. So, that's a larger increase. So, I mean,
Pat, I don't want to disagree with you, but the road and front bridge is something that's always going to be there. Every year, we're going to see that go up and down. The jail is a 1 in a 50-year thing. So the road and bridge fund, yes, we're going to see that go up and down. And that's why we line item that out and say, this is why that happened.
Yep.
But the jail thing, that's a one-time deal.
Yeah.
And we're going to, I hope it never happens again in my lifetime.
Yeah. But I think
that's the difference.
Yeah, but I think if you look at the next document, it's really telling you what the expenditures are going up. If you look at general fund, it's going to 7.5. If you look at it's each department, it's actually by itself. If you look at opiate, it's basically, there's no increase in there. If you look at.
And I appreciate that. And I know that.
But they're all going up.
The thing of it is, it's the average person that goes online and takes a look at this. And just like we said, go start at page 160. They're going to see two things. They're not going to go through here and line item out. They're going to see expenditures are down and revenues down. And it's a fallacy. They're not. They're actually up when we're comparing them against last year, because that needs to get pulled out, because that is a non-reoccurring expense. It's a non-reoccurring. That's basic 101. You don't lump wrong. You don't keep putting those non-reoccurring expenses in your budget. If they're a one-time expense, or if there's something over here, you line item them out, you put them over here, you can add it to the fictitious total. But in reality, our expense is our reoccurring expenses up or down. And my whole thing is that in transparency, so that the average taxpayer can see, is the county spending less money? Somebody just asked, are you spending less money or more money? Are we on budget? And my thing is, if I looked at that and had no idea how to deduce that out, I would say, well, look at the county spending less money and they're taking less money in.
Commissioner Olson, we have something on our website that is, what's it called? Financial transparency. And so I think that is our public facing document. I myself use it because you can see, and I think it changed when we went to the new website, but you can see 8 or so years.
It's not current. I think
No,
it's
it
back to
doesn't show what 2024 will be.
I thought it was even.
It
No,
doesn't matter.
because I looked at it just the other day. But so then I don't know that these documents, I think that Pat has accounting requirements that are imposed on us. And so that this document is really not the public facing document. The transparency portal is.
I think everyone.
Is that, would you say that that's a fair assessment? Commissioner Ward.
Okay. Well, we were asked if we're doing anything to cut our spending. And the fact of the matter is, no, we haven't cut any spending. And again, this board doesn't seem to care to cut spending. We've gotten a lot of money thrown at us. And again, I can't, 1 vote can't change it. 2 votes can't change it. It's a 3-2 decision. But we've gotten a lot of money thrown at us. We got 800 and let's see, what was it? County program aid. And I know you've got that broke down in 3. We had $814,426. Now that's ongoing, correct? That wasn't one time. That, although the legislature always can change.
Yeah.
Subject to change.
It's subject to change.
But that wasn't designated as one-time money. And I know you put it in 3 different areas and such, but right there with the state giving us 814,000, we should have been able to reduce something. But as our charts show, everything is going up. We got the public safety aid, and you've got that broke down in a couple of areas. And again, that one I'm wondering, that's $837. What was the timeline that has to be spent? Because it seems like we're aggressively spending it in 1 year. It's a one-time money, I understand.
One-time
but
money.
could we split it out over a couple years spending it?
Well, when we were going through the budget, we were looking at the capital items and the items that the sheriff had in the capital request. We, instead of it looking at levying dollars, we looked at spending the public safety dollars, so it wouldn't come out of levy.
But I think I read an article where one of those groups was trying to do fundraiser for one of the vehicles we're saying we're gonna buy. I
It's
thought I did.
because the vehicle they are desiring
More
is more than what we
expensive.
are allowing.
Okay. Well, and again, number one, and I said this before, that public safety money came to Winona County. It did not come to Winona County Sheriff. And I feel offended that the county board didn't decide, okay, Mr. Sheriff, Mr. Yanrud, you figure out how to spend it. Public safety is more than just the sheriff's department. There's other areas that overlap. And then there's some local housing. But anyway, I do have to put a ploy in, and I talked to other commissioners across the state of Minnesota. We need a budget committee. This is too much information. And again, I know and you print different documents. It's too much information coming to us on Thursday afternoon to try and really make sense of it. And I really feel that we haven't, I know plates have been full, but I think if we had a budget committee, finance committee that worked on this through the year, 2 commissioners with staff, we would have a better understanding of all the numbers. And I know departments, I know Olmsted County, as large as they are, they take a couple days and go through line item by line item, their budget. So they know what's in there. I feel unprepared, and that's part of it's on me. But again, I'm only one commissioner. A couple of things I would request before we make a final decision is I didn't see, and maybe it's here, fund balance. We have all these different funds, and what are we projecting the 2023 fund balance? Because we budget, and the budget's just a tool. We've always said it's just a tool. What have we actually spent, and how much do we have left in each fund projected for 2023? And then we should be able to project that somewhat for 2024. What kind of fund balance, budget balance, fund balances are we going to have? We've made comments in the past, personnel is one of our biggest expenses. And yes, we have good people, but we seem to maybe have a little bit of creep. The one that pops up is the RAP position that was a grant and then it became a county employee. So where are we at with our personnel? And I know you have included like 2 full-time and maybe 2 temp services. That's in this budget. That was on the second page of the memo. New personnel requests and temp professional services. Those are in the budget?
Yes.
Or they're additional?
Yep.
And the first 2, the criminal social justice was full-time, the K-State is full-time, and law library and crime victims are temp, but are they considered full-time?
There's just a dollar amount in the budgets.
Okay, but I guess I would like to see where our personnel, I know on that portal, there's some full-time
FTEs,
equivalents, FTEs, but it seems like we're getting some creep in there. And it happens with some of the grants and some of the things some of these new programs that the state of Minnesota says we need to do. Well, and people need to understand all that money they threw at it, like the gentleman said, it comes with more responsibilities, and it seems it's not to pay for what we're already doing. It's always enhanced programs, new programs, which comes with more people and staffing and such. So I would like a personnel list. I was really disturbed in one of the comments about the future referendum sales tax versus the bonding. Now, we have said, I think Commissioner Vagley agreed, and it was at the time Commissioner Jacob and myself, that if we got that in November 2024, the sales tax for the jail bond, that we would reduce levy. And I think there's an inference here that, maybe we'll just keep that money and keep building on it. So I don't want to put that message out to the public that we're thinking we're going to get that plus. That really disturbed me. Let's see, fund balances, estimate, the levy, the bonds. You've got 3 bonds, and I thought we were getting rid of something, and now I saw somewhere it's up to 20,
For the
3 of them. Is that all? You got 2020, 2021, and 2022.
Hope you can remember.
Are those all related to the jail now?
Yeah, we bonded 3 times for the jail.
Okay, so all those other that we had previously did get paid off.
Those got paid off. Those are the only 3 GO bonds that we have. We do have one other debt. It has related to a sewer system that was put in down in the Dresbach area. And that's actually where it's the person has to pay the taxes and then we pay the loan back to the state. Or
They didn't do that project.
it's actually,
Well,
it's a,
it's in there, but
it's a,
it's in their levy. It's in the,
no, no.
Dres-
It's actually a personal residence. It's a resident that actually had an
oh, this
egg.
is somebody else. It
Yep.
wasn't that community project. you're
Yep, it's the
talking
Ag BMP loan. They actually got an Ag BMP loan that actually the county has, and we have to collect the taxes on it, and then we have to send the money off to the state when
Okay,
we
because what
collect that.
Dave was talking about, they have that in their budget because they spend a lot of money trying to get that community sewer. So I was confused there. Okay. Well, those are some of the things, because I can't see where the trends are going, and I don't like the way the trends are going because, as it's been pointed out, we have a spending problem. We're spending more and more dollars, and certain areas, yes, you have to spend, but we have not ever decided to reduce or cut something. That I think the message out here was that we can't keep raising our taxes.
I just want to mention the one thing that we came into this budget, and that's actually it's being solved in 1 year. Last year, we left on the table $1,083,000 of expenses that were not covered. We had a deficit budget. We had revenues at $1 amount and we had expenses at another dollar amount. It was like $1,083,000. This budget at this point is solving that whole thing. So we actually have a balanced budget. At right now, we actually have a little bit extra revenue than expenses. So if you take that 9.88, or let's say we round it up till 10, it basically would be that would have been 5%. That would be this year. And then solving that other part would have probably been about another 5%.
But how much did we budget that we haven't spent? We have, staffing positions that are open, and we haven't done some things and gotten some grants. I mean, again, you always tell me a budget is just a guideline. So what are we actually looking at as far as what's left that we didn't spend?
Is that document in there? I
I
don't
mean,
have
and you
my
could, I don't need it right now, but you need to, before we do a final vote.
Yeah, there is a document that has been prepared. I will share that with you. The one thing that, I will say here is I don't think we should use a lot of reserves to actually help balance this budget, because then it actually is pushing that can down the road like we did last year. Now, when we came back and
What are our reserves?
what are our reserves?
Yeah.
I have
You have it, okay, you can just send that out. I mean.
yeah, this is on page 183. Yeah. 182 and 83. Come on. I did an assumption, and assumption is basically on what am I going to be looking at. So if you look on page 182,
yeah.
Column 2 is the budget that we actually had planned. Column 3 is actually the actual of where we stood, and this actually was as of through November. And then what I did for December 22, the next column over, is I looked at what actually occurred in 2022, and I used those numbers as the expenses. So it's basically actuals through November, and then December is what we occurred in 22, and then I kind of used the numbers, and right now we're going to see that the general fund, we think we'll have some money left over. If you look at highway, we're going to probably overspend in that area. Human services we're going to overspend, and then overall, when you look at the whole item, we're right down to we have about 86,000 that we overspent for the budget.
You brought that, what is the CLFRF revenue?
Those are, everybody refers to those as ARPA funds. Those are funds that basically we have to spend by 2024. Right now, we have received all the revenue for those in 21 and 22. So right now what we're doing is spending the dollars with those items. And I think we have about 1.5 million left to spend of those dollars.
Are those committed?
They are committed.
But they had we handed all that out to all these
Well, they
organizations
have yet
are-
to spend about 1.5.
5 million,
At the
yep.
end of 2024.
Is that in our control or are we giving it to all these other organizations around the community?
It's already been committed. They
Com-
just haven't provided the documentation to prove they've completed
Okay,
it.
so it's not our money anymore.
Yeah.
Okay.
Commissioner Vegley had wanted the floor.
Just to get the item up on the table for discussion. And we could, of course, we could continue to ask questions and discuss it further. I'd like to make a motion to reduce the levy by 0.48% and then to set aside money for future needs in terms of bonding, capital, et cetera, of $95,000. It's on page 184. It's option 2.
Okay. Or it's described on page 162 as well.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Yep. On page 184 or 162.
I'll second that motion. Okay, 182 is where the resolution is?
184.
184, thank you.
Well, that's what where it's summarized.
So I'm sorry, you said option
2.
2?
Option 2. What page is option 2, the resolution on?
I'm sorry. It's where the ideas are summarized is 184.
Yeah.
Well, we're not voting tonight.
I think that we need to have a document prepared for the next meeting, correct?
Yeah.
This isn't a final, this would be.
This isn't a final decision, but it's a document for me to actually prepare so I can bring back some documents and actually also the levy and the budget for that you would be adopting on the 28th.
Should I word the motion differently? It's to propose that this be the language on the
For the next meeting, for the
28th.
for the final levy.
Or what's the best way to make the motion in terms of what you need to get the paperwork?
I think just basically telling me that if you'd want to go to the 9.4 and then I would prepare it based on that information.
Now,
Did you
sorry.
No,
give
that's
up the
it.
floor?
That's it.
Okay,
I'm not seconding it.
I seconded it.
Okay.
Commissioner Ward.
Okay. Most of our our audience participation tonight were homeowners. What has the mix happened with commercial property, ag property, and homesteads? Did everybody, maybe you can't answer. maybe that's
I
the
can't
assessor.
answer. That would be more of that would be
Yeah, I
probably the assessor. I don't know.
Uh,
If you have any-
I did ask the assessor to provide us with the tax capacity worksheet. It doesn't break it down that way. It breaks it down though by municipality. So for example, tax capacity is the property value plus the rate that can be applied to a particular classification. So it's both of those components. So if you were to summarize all of the townships and compare that to the city of Winona, the city of Winona is more than 50% of the tax capacity for the county. So it's because the commercial properties have a higher value and they're taxed at a higher rate than other properties are. Commissioner, are you done with the floor?
Yeah.
Okay, Commissioner Baker.
I don't want to talk too much, but I just want to reiterate what I said earlier. I'm sorry it was too soon, that we are, and of course, the property tax is the most regressive. It's the one that I like of all the taxes. No one likes any taxes, but this is the worst tax, the property tax, especially for senior citizens and others on fixed incomes. I truly value and hear what people are saying. Having said that, Winona County has been and still is continuing to be prudent financially, both in the short term and the long term with these funds. We are going to increase from the 3rd lowest to the 4th lowest out of 87 counties. So I do hear when those large swings are horrible.
Wow.
Especially in rural areas. Now, the terms of, I believe, Ms. Wilbur, correct me if I'm wrong, I think Commissioner Ward, you asked about comparing houses to houses. I think when they do comps, they're comparing like valued. But that's a question for Mr. Conway to clarify, is that we are increasing the levy, no ifs, ands, or buts about it, with 7% in health insurance. We do face a labor shortage. We have unfortunate decisions, we have to make, et cetera. That's just the reality. But a lot of what's driving this is rural property values in terms of including some of the people who are moving to the rural area from the cities, et cetera. So I don't want to, this is a much bigger issue, and it's a complicated issue. But yes, what happens, watching my family's 4-generation farm, and watch what happened to land values when it got chopped up into 5-acre lots and et cetera, and what it did to the property values. Yeah, I know how real that is, especially for people who are longtime residents. But I just want to say again that it is a large increase, and it is real, and it's painful, but we're still the 4th lowest tax county in the state of Minnesota.
Only Anoka, Washington, and Dakota County have lower tax per capita than Winona, out of the 87 counties in the state.
Doesn't mean there's room for improvement, doesn't mean there's other things that can be done, et cetera, but
No, and
I'm sorry, inflation. I mean, it's horrible. It's absolutely, but it affects government, local government as well. So I'm sorry, now I'll be done.
Yeah.
I appreciate
Mr. Elsing?
Yeah.
Did you raise your hand?
I did. Yeah.
Okay, go for it.
I appreciate it. But, the biggest thing is just how do you look at the person that says, hey, your taxes got to go up, your rent's got to go up, your insurance now goes up because your valuation keeps going up and all these things. I think the one gentleman just made it very clear. I think the one gentleman made it very clear that, what are we doing to reduce? And as Commissioner Ward said, I don't really see anything we're reducing. I don't see anything we're really giving up. We're just happy that we started at 24 and we're going to end up at 9. That's what bothers me. I just can't figure out why that's a good thing. And I know in business you'd be out of business. So that's the tough part. And so I know it's just disheartening to me. I just know we're not going to end it.
From my perspective, sitting on the CJCC and some of its subcommittees and attending the Health and Human Services Advisory Committee, the other side of that I see is people who suffered through the pandemic, people who are in need of our services, those things that we're mandated to do by the state of Minnesota. Food assistance, clothing assistance, medical care, income assistance, help to get retrained and find a job. And those are all things that the state mandates us to do, but then we do not get full reimbursement for those things. And so while if we looked at page 164 of our packet, our expenditures are $67,935,000. The levy is really only 36% of the total budget. And I would love it if we didn't have to levy that, but we do because of the services that we have to provide. And for folks who are in need, that is part of the business of government. So I see the other side of that as well, and that our job is to try and balance the two. Thinking about some of Commissioner Ward's comments, it's great that the state of Minnesota gave us additional funds. Even though they increased county program aid, they also passed the Paid Family Leave Act, and there's a substantial expense to the county then to fund that program. And then our health insurance has gone up 7%. Our wages are up 8%. And so those are all things that end up eating that money, even though we get it. So while I would love to not have to raise folks' taxes, and it's terrible to see someone whose property value increased so that even if I had reduced taxes, there's still an outrageous percentage increase. No, that's not right. You're absolutely right. On the other hand, I also have to provide services for folks.
Shall we call the question?
Is there any further discussion?
I do have a question. So personnel, I've always said, we need people, but it costs us a lot. So we had a long list on a previous document of about, I think, 10 or 12 positions. How did we narrow it down to all the criminal justice, case aid, law library? Don't we have AI? Can't we use AI for law library? Crime
Law
victims,
library pays for itself, so it's
crime
money
victim
in and
services.
out.
I mean, how did we determine that that was our biggest and best use of tax dollars to do those things versus some of the other things? I guess we never had that discussion. I'm not sure how you determined that.
Administrator Holte.
Because I get lobbied for some other departments that are looking for some help, and I don't know how to answer them.
Respectfully, we have had the discussion as a board. You folks have had the discussion. As far as the case aid, I provided information how that is a wash. That is not going to increase the levy at
Maybe,
all.
that's a maybe, isn't it? Isn't it going to take time? Wasn't that the one that's 1 or 2 years out to
Nope,
determine?
I reduced
Which
the
one that-
expenses.
Okay, which one was it that you said it would
The
take a
case
couple
aid.
years?
Oh,
One of them you said it
no,
would take a couple
that
years.
to go above and beyond the cost of the position will take a couple years.
Okay, so,
Above and beyond the cost of the position.
okay, so case, I
But
apologize.
adding the
Case
case
aid,
aid is no increase to the budget.
how is that?
Because we can build the
I
state.
decreased the out-of-home placement line item. And I communicated that.
Okay, but that's a, well, that's a wish. It's not determined yet, right?
You have
It's
the
a
means
desire.
to hold me accountable, Commissioner.
Yeah, well, you can't take care of all the kids in the county, so, yeah, I'm sorry, but it's a hopeful, optimistic outlook.
Wait a minute. Administrator Holte, is there more? Before she gives up the floor, and then you,
I
Commissioner.
was just
Go
going to
ahead.
make a comment on that, ask a quick question.
The wrap one was voted at the,
Could I, if you don't mind, could I just ask a quick question?
Please go ahead.
Is that okay? So that would be one that I had brought up to say, I like things like that. I like things that, hey, but before, I always call it vetting it out. Let's see if this works. So before we hire a full-time person, because that's what you're looking to do there, I'd suggested that we put a contract person into play, that if the theory doesn't prove true, we just say, okay, it doesn't work. We let that person go versus putting somebody on staff. And it's very difficult to get rid of them after they're on staff. So that was my suggestion was if it's true, I like things like that, but let's set ourselves up for success where if it doesn't work, even at the 5% chance, what's the difference if we contract it or hire the person? As long as we've got similar dollars put towards it and we can show, hey, then we could possibly down the road look at hiring that person full time. And then we know it's vetted out and it's true rather than catch ourselves in a scenario where we can't, okay, it didn't work. And now here we sit with somebody we can't really. I think that was my suggestion when we had that conversation.
Yes, it was. Okay,
So,
but you're saying you reduced out-of-home placement. Okay.
so my question was, was that ever explored?
We did not. I looked at it from the perspective of paying the administrative overhead through a temp service. So we're going to pay 35% overhead.
It would be if you don't mind a candid conversation, just a little banter, but that might be 1 year. But I mean, I think there would be a little bit of a risk or a gauge factor for an unknown to say, hey, I've got a small investment for potentially eternity, right? Or hey, if it didn't work out, okay, we're only out that additional 30%, and away we go. I think, if I was a gambling man, which I'm not, those are pretty good odds that would say this could pay off, And I'm not saying that it has to be done that way. We could think like that. I think we could lessen this continued staffing thing that we see. And it gives us some leverage as a county to be able to alleviate things left or right. So that was my suggestion. I know I'm not going to win on it, but.
So move on to the funding of the criminal justice social worker.
That is something the county board voted on.
Right.
That is a county board decision, ma'am.
I guess it wasn't a 5-0 vote.
It doesn't
Okay.
matter. It was a
All right.
board decision.
Okay. But is that through, so again, when you start adding these people, who does that criminal justice social worker, who does that person report to?
The Health and Human Services Director.
Okay.
If I may, I think I brought it up on that one too, didn't I? Bringing in that person as a contract I thought I did.
Yeah,
Maybe that
like-
might have been the one.
Person is already, is grant funded. So they're already,
Might not have been that one. Then.
Employee.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I knew there was a couple of them that brought that up or just said, hey, can we start with that? And then if it works, move them in.
Marcia, I also wanted to mention
Yeah.
that I think was it the law library, the dollar amount that was put into law library, there are actually reserves that are going to be used to actually pay for that. Law library has about a little over $100,000 worth of reserves, so that's actually going to be funded with the reserves.
It can only
So-
be spent on law
Okay,
library,
so
too.
see there, there wasn't
All
anywhere
right up
here
here.
that we knew that there was 100,000 for reserve. So I guess that'll be provided.
Madam Commissioner, that it was in previous county board discussion and in packets. You
Right,
may
and
not
it's hard.
recall it, but it was provided.
Okay, I don't remember the reserve amount. Okay, and I know there's a subscription and everything there. One of the, and I don't know how easily this would be starting January 1. We had the health director, Supervisor Melanie, said that she had a grant and there was like, I don't know, a couple $100,000 there or something
COVID
that she
money,
could.
yeah.
Yep.
COVID money?
COVID money. I think part of my frustration is that all these departments and things are both tax levy and there are a lot of grants and everything.
Okay.
And I don't know if it would be how you could create a flow chart, a Venn diagram, circles or whatever, of what in the department budget is grant funded. And then if there's employees that are hired through the grant, I mean, again, clarity. I mean, it all gets thrown in here, just like, like we threw in here, the opioid settlement, 59,000. Well, that's good and great, but it's kind of, it's that oddity. It's not a given, maybe it's a bad
18
example.
For 18 years.
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna linger.
That I think I could put into a budget.
But then I read an article, are we sure we're gonna get that? Because there's a big lawsuit about the
There
family
is a
that has to pay.
lawsuit,
You know, if it
right, a
changes there.
yes, a
Yeah.
bankruptcy, but that's only part of it.
Okay, I mean, maybe that was a poor example and such, but
I know what you mean.
parks, you've got a spending, parks like 600 and it was a big jump. But it was a grant. So I
Yeah.
mean, again,
The
I can't keep track of all the things that we did yesterday, let alone, for the year. So somewhere along the line, I guess I would feel if I knew that was because there was a grant.
Yep. The increase in the parks is related to the grant that was adopted. And I think there's actually a note on one of your documents that said that there was a increase of a grant that actually was approved by the board, and that was
remember
actually the
voting on
match.
Some grant, yeah. Right. But again, I guess, like I'm saying, if I'm going to advocate for that finance budget committee to be ongoing throughout the year to get a handle on this and understand it better.
And if anybody wants to come in and meet about budget, you can come and we can talk about budgets and how grants are in the budget. I think if I actually tried to put a document together, I know you guys are looking for something more summarized. I think what you're asking for would actually increase your budget.
Yeah, we'd have to hire another finance assistant.
It's very complicated.
It is, but I just
And
don't
it's a
feel we're
moving
doing
target,
we're doing it justice in our high, we just discussed our pay, how we earn our paycheck. It's one of the biggest things that we do, yet we let staff do 90+%. And then we get these lengthy documents and to try and compare one document from 2 weeks ago. And so it's not easy, as you know, and I like things in smaller doses. That's a personal preference.
I'm just gonna call myself. Yeah, and that's why, and I didn't mean anything facetious by that, Pat. I mean, what I was talking about with those percentages, but because we do get such a snapshot and because the community gets such a snapshot, they're gonna take those little bits of tidbit information, right? And they're gonna say, and that's why I think it's just, if we can clear those things out and really just, sorry, I'm going to speak up because otherwise they can't hear me and I get yelled at. It's why I say what I say, because it's, again, I didn't mean anything facetious by that, Pat. I just like taking those simple things and clarifying them out, because that's what I'm going to say the majority, by far the overwhelming majority of people are going to see that. They're going to see a negative or a positive, and they know what that means. Either things are down or things are up, right? And I'm not saying nobody's going to take the time to read it, but ultimately that just helps even us. Because when I first saw that, I'm like, wow, revenue's down and expenditures are down. That can't be. The levy's going up, things are going up. Like, then I started looking at all the numbers going, boy, there's a lot of big numbers that are in the plus column. How can we be down and down? And then I went back and realized, okay, we got an expenditure fund that's not reoccurring, and that's skewing the numbers. Pull that out, do the math, and here we are, right? It skews it 16%. And so that's what I mean by that. It's just that transparency and making it a little bit more clear without having to hire the additional person to go in and clarify it, because then you kind of get what I call the 80,000 foot approach, the 40,000 foot approach, and the boots on the ground. And a lot of people are going to be at the 80,000 foot. And when we put up one chart that summarizes all next 200 and some pages, if it's showing negatives, you're just going to assume it's negatives without going into that. And so I think it'd be nice, in the future, to think about those things to the common person, including the couple days we get to try to review all this. We don't have to deduce that out a little bit. So those little things like that can go a long ways in our world, and I think in the community's eyes too, to really show that. And, so as you go through these, create these things, and thank you for all your guys' hard work. But, those little things mean a lot to me because I try to see them in the perspective of people that may or may not understand them. So.
Thank you. Commissioner Olson.
Commissioner Olson, just, are you saying that it makes sense to you now? Before you were kind of questioning it, but now it's.
No, I've always been able, with the exception of the first 30 seconds in which I looked at it, so I realized what was going on, but I wanted to bring it to the attention of everybody else that may not have seen it that way and really understood what those numbers actually meant.
So now we all know what they mean, and except for the vast majority of people that don't know what they mean. And it is confusing and it's cumbersome to go through it. I agree with that, but now that you've reached a level of comfort, I'm glad.
Commissioner Ward, did you want the floor?
Yes, you mentioned the financial portal.
Yes.
And okay, so I did pull it up, and the last time I looked at it, I don't think it had 23 in here, but it does now.
23's in there, yeah.
Yeah, 23 is in here
But
now.
it's actual, not the budget.
Well, so this is, I'd have to go back and look and dig some. So it said back in 2022, we spent $92,229,590. We're not even projecting to spend that today, so I'm not sure what that figure is.
Is that including the agency funds?
I don't know. You tell me. It's your.
I think if you click on there, it'll tell you that it'll break it out into the different agents, and it's probably including your taxes that are coming in.
Well, it says revenue and expense annually. This report shows monthly revenues and purchases. So I guess I would ask somebody that does this information to check this. Is it? I mean, if the public looks at this, they're saying, "Oh wow, they did cut something." But
because that's including like the outside agencies would be taxes. It's including the health, the employee health. It's the whole expenses.
Yeah, I guess there is a discrepancy there between this says 73 and that says 93.
Well, and this was 2022.
Those are the actual. What's in the document is the budget.
You can take a look at it.
I'm sure the jail probably skewed.
Right. Commissioner Vegley would like the floor.
To Commissioner Elstein's points, though, yeah, I agree. Looking at some of the pages by themselves, it definitely can be misleading. That's a very valid point. I think what was most helpful for me was Ms. Holte's, was it two pages and a little spare change, et cetera. I think that these documents were very helpful in terms of, I think also it had numbers and also mostly plain English. Sometimes you got a little jargony, but I think that this does a nice job of talking. And it doesn't, no one's trying to, I think, hide or mislead the public. It talks about levy increases. It talks about health insurance. It talks about contractual wage and benefits. So capital improvement requests, et cetera. So I do think that if people are concerned about why things are going up and down, I think there's always room for improvement here too, but I definitely hear you. Some of these pages, I'd have looked twice, 3 times to figure out what I was looking at for sure. Having said all that, I feel like we could talk this to death. Can we call the question on this?
Is that a motion to call the question?
Yes,
Okay.
because we have some other items to get through tonight too,
Pardon
right?
me, does it require a second? I know it's not debatable.
I believe it does.
I gotta get to the top of the document. We have, somebody gets the Robert rules before Robert.
Second is required, yes.
All right, I'll second it. Okay, and there isn't discussion because it's not debatable, but it does require a super majority, right? So it requires 4 votes to pass.
2/3.
2/3?
2/3.
Okay. All those in favor of calling the question on the budget fee schedule and, well, the budget, the motion as made by Commissioner Vagley to prepare the paperwork, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Is those who are opposed, please say nay.
Nay.
Motion carries.
No. Was that a motion to call the question?
That was a
That
motion
was
to call the
Call the
question.
question, yeah. So, pardon me, because I didn't state that right. Yes,
Yep.
that was the motion to call the question. So the motion was made by Commissioner Vagley, it was seconded by Commissioner Meyer. It is to choose option 2, which is to reduce the levy by 0.48%, and to put the remaining 42% of the levy points towards future expenses, so in reserves. Commissioner Olson?
Can you remind me what page that was on?
184.
I've been.
Well, that's where it's
I've
summarized.
been, yeah, I've been
184?
shuffling pages here.
Yeah. So I
Okay. Found it.
right, I need to go there.
So that's option 2, correct?
Right, okay,
But
yes.
you said 40-some%. I don't, is that what you said? Is that what-
It reduces it to 9.4%.
9.4, maybe I.
Yeah, 9.4, and then the reduction of the
0.48.
0.48.
Okay. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Those who are opposed, please say nay.
Nay.
Motion carries. Thank you for that lively discussion. Brings us to item 9.2.
Well, do we also need to set the fee schedule and the transportation sales
Okay.
tax?
Sure.
The staff needs that too, right?
We need a motion on that, or?
Those will go back,
Those will come back at the next meeting for final
yeah,
approval.
those 2 documents, since there wasn't any discussion, that they'll be coming back just the way they are, except for the fee schedule. We'll have those 3 changes that I mentioned.
Okay, I don't want you to feel that you've missed the boat. Commissioner Elsing, did you want to talk about the fee schedule or the road projects?
Nope.
Oh, you're okay?
The fee schedule, though, you said the department heads reviewed it all and
Yep,
they caught
yep,
those few
yep.
changes.
There was a couple changes that will be made for the 28th.
And that can be subject to change during the year too, because I remember one time we found something that was out of line. So
Yep.
we can change that if need be. Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
No need to further discuss 9.1. Okay, so.
Thank you for that.
So that means we could move on to 9.2, which is to discuss and hopefully approve the SEMCRA special benefit tax levy and pick a resolution for fiscal year 2024.
Good evening, Buffy Beranek, Executive Director of SEMCRA. That was my first truth in taxation meeting in 18 years of being here. It was actually very helpful, and I'll kind of change my presentation a little bit to address some of the questions that arose from that discussion. Our levy request was broken into 2 parts this year, an option A and an option B. Option A is our levy that is required to operate SEMCRA, to keep it going. We need that. That has been held as part of the preliminary levy. The motion was made to decrease our request to 100,000. The revenue has been 100,000 for the 10 past years. We have had to force our expenses to meet that. So, and again, from a SEMCRA budget perspective, this is just the Winona levy. The SEMCRA overall budget is much larger. So this is only the component of the levy that is related to Winona. The general overhead levy is broken into 3 key parts. The first is general fund expenditures. Our total overhead increased by 4.1%. The portion that is allocated to all 4 counties, SEMCRA is a multi-county HRA, participating is Winona, Dodge, Wabasha, and Goodhue County, excluding the cities of Winona and Red Wing. And it's based on population and taxable values. The second portion of the 100,000 is for prior projects that were approved by county board. Commissioner Ward may have been the only commissioner that approved those projects. And they may have been approved even before she
Uh,
was.
the St. Charles? No, that was, I take
That
no
was,
credit for that.
okay, that was but even before. Just a brief update on that one. I am hopeful that in 2025, when I am back in front of you, that will not be in there.
Close it out.
So we won't close the TIF, but that 25,000 will go to a different line item. And we'll be able to still continue to keep us at 100,000, but we'll be able to fund, and this goes to Commissioner Meyer's point on if you keep a budget at a consistent level, you give something up, and what you give up is the service component. And we've had to give up our receptionist. We've had to give up. We don't have a support service coordinator. We don't provide the best level of service that we can, or that we probably should be. So we will. I don't expect our overall levy next year to decrease, but be reallocated. And then finally, the $4,360 is for preservation. That's really important. That provides a return on investment of about $600,000. That's small. That's the small cities grants that are open. We have one open in Goodhue, one open in St. Charles right now, and Altura and Rolling Stone. So that's really important money. There's a great return on assets there. The second portion of our levy request was for, and again, I'm hopeful that this is a one-time, maybe 2 times. And I brought this forward as a response to the 1.3 billion that's sitting at the state for housing. How do we bring some of those dollars back here? They're going to be spent, and how can we bring some of that back? So part of that is for hiring grant services, a grant service individual, limited tenure position, or contracted out. The second component, so when you can write, you have to write for the grant services to bring the dollars back. You have to have leverage dollars. We know that to have successful grants, you have to have leverage dollars. That would mean, and we had a discussion at the last board meeting that I attended in November about housing trust funds. So a portion of that 90,000 that's part of that option B is to fund a housing trust fund. And as I told you, we can't do that for free. That was part of $110,000. It costs to run and set up a housing trust fund. And then when you have a housing trust fund, there's programs within that. You can take 10% of the dollars that flow into your housing trust fund to run the programs. So there's program management, and then there's the overarching setting up and running of the housing trust fund. So that's how it was 40,000 and 50,000 in the original budget request. And I told you I would come forward with that amendment. So I'm hoping that's pretty straightforward. I'm going to just open it up for questions.
Commissioner Ward?
The local housing aid that came from the state of Minnesota, $132,885. We did discuss if we got that, we would stay our levy at 100,000, and you could tap out 90 out of that. Is that still an option? Can we still use that money for that? I'm looking at Ms. Holte. I'm looking.
Yeah, it's my understanding, based on a conversation with Ms. Holte, that the 40,000 for the staff person, no.
I don't care how she rearranges the money. All Buffy wants is 190,000, and she can rearrange it however she needs to see fit. But I'm saying I want to take that some of that, the state local housing aid money, and do what you want to do with it.
I'll try to address, and then correct me if I'm wrong. The local affordable housing aid, also called LAHA, cannot be used to fund staff people. It's like a restricted fund. It's like spending your tax dollars for your roads
Yeah,
and
but
streets.
I give you local levy, you can staff the person.
Correct. If you give me the 40,000 to staff the person, fine.
No, out of the 100,000, that's local levy.
My guess is she can't use that for her other 3 points in their option A either.
I don't know that that's.
I will not have capacity for staff. There's in the $100,000. That's to run Semtra. That's core operations where we're at today. And we're behind because we have done no increases in the past 10 years. Option B is if you want to have a housing trust fund and you want to go after it, it's going to cost us staff dollars to do that. we need $40,000 for a grant writer to do that,
But I can't use this 132,855 for any of
not for
that.
the grant writer.
No.
No,
Not even a
Probably not
contract,
for
no.
the,
because you were gonna
No.
contract versus
and
employee.
also
Yeah.
not for the preservation and development line item, the 4,500.
The 4,500 under option B is to create the housing trust fund, manage the funds coming in and out of it, not to do the programmatic stuff, but so that it costs $4,500 and that will be part of your levy every year going forward. I'm going to be very, very transparent on that one. That 4,500 will come out of your 25,000 next year if we're not, or it'll be 104,500 plus the additional dollars that I truly need. But
You're telling me what I can't do. What can I do with that $132,885? What can I do with it?
you can put, use that as leverage. You can put that into your housing trust fund and you can use that as leverage or match dollars on a grant to, you can use it for down payment assistance. You can use it for rental assistance. You can use it for preservation dollars, for.
That money was given to the county and now
Correct.
was that again, that's kind of one time?
No.
Or is that ongoing?
2 years at
It's-
2
yeah, it's-
years at
and then they're gonna
130,
cut it
then
in
it's gonna,
half
then
or
they'll
something
cut it
like
in
that.
half. Correct.
Okay, thank you.
So I asked a similar question, Commissioner Ward, of Administrator Holte. And she said that sometime after the first of the year, that staff will come back with a proposal for the full 132,000, right?
Working with Ms. Sonneman on the draft documents.
Which, I'm sorry, I was looking at I was looking at your
Housing trust.
The housing trust, yeah.
But for the full $132,000 request, which would not all have to go into the housing trust fund.
Correct, that's my understanding.
Correct. I think there's two things that need to come back to the county board. One would be the housing trust fund, because we have to pass an ordinance to actually set that up, and it's going to take us first quarter at best to get that set up. The second thing is your LAHA money, that 132,000. You need to decide where you want to put that. You can put that into the housing trust fund and it can be used for match money. I need to work with Pat and Maureen on specifically. There's probably even more specific things that has to be used for or can't be used for than the 45,500 for the housing trust fund out of ours. So
you're saying if we were to do the levy for the 45.5, that you'll have more latitude?
I have
than
more latitude.
If we use the 132,000?
Yes. I don't want to get too deep in the details.
In outside Winona City.
I need
All
to
outside the Winona City.
make sure I address that, please. The 45,500, when we put that into the housing trust fund, you can use that to request to be matched at the state. So what the state is now telling us is, and they're making this they're making a competitive process when initially in 2021, it wasn't supposed to, they were just supposed to provide match money. It has to be local dollars. It can't be your LAHA money that came from the state. We can't take our 132 plus the 45 and ask for that to be matched. We can only, whatever we put in, whatever Winona County puts in locally into the housing trust fund, we can write a grant for and ask for match money.
Please say that again. I thought
So,
I got it, but.
It's LAHA. It's government telling us how to spend the money
Yeah.
they're giving us. It's LAHA.
LAHA is not allowed to be matched for that grant, for the grant. They're saying you have to take your local, yes, this is things are just
Yeah, so if we
developing.
We don't levy for the
Yeah.
190.
So here's two things that I will say on the LAHA. If you put it into the housing trust fund, I'm going to take 10% for administration to run programs. If you don't, you can't use it for administrative dollars. It's going to go to hard costs. I talked about this at the last meeting. The only county that's not putting it into a housing trust fund that I know of at this point is Goodhue County. They're looking to use that as match dollars for down payment assistance directly through the county. So there's many benefits to running it through the Housing Trust Fund. Just it's what we do. And there's probably an inherent cost of having your staff do that versus having us do it. So that's one piece. So you won't get matched on the LAHA. And if it goes into the Housing Trust Fund, we're going to take 10% for it. I just want to be super transparent on that. The other piece, the decision on the LAHA that you have to make, remember, SEMSHRA is the HRA for the county, excluding the city of Winona. I want to work with the city of Winona however I possibly can. I know the city of Winona is looking at setting up a housing trust fund as well. If the money, again, I have $100,000. I've been at $100,000. My budget's super thin. I don't have capacity to take on the city of Winona. With our board recently, there are needy counties nearby that would like SEMSHRA to come in. We've had to say, no, we can't do that. We don't have capacity to take that on. So if you make the decision to put all of the LAHA money into the trust, into the fund that SEMSHRA is managing it, we will manage it only for our service area. So you simply take your LAHA money and split it between city and county if you want that LAHA money spent. It's your choice.
The city has their own money and it's more than what we're getting.
Right.
Thank you. Are you entertaining questions? Are there questions?
Yeah, any questions?
No, I'm going to put on, I move to adopt option A.
I have one quick question. What's in your current budget?
It's in my current budget.
Like, how much money do you have right now? Like carryover money going in?
Oh, like our reserves, how much in
and
reserves?
General funds? I mean,
Yeah,
the total it all up.
we carry about a 6-month reserve in our general fund, which is about 300,000.
Right now in total bank accounts for all your deal, it's about 300,000.
No, total bank accounts is about $1 million, but that's restricted dollars that are out there. It's, restricted funds. Yeah.
I have one more question.
Mm-hmm.
So when you say that the 100,000 is, when you look at that and say, I realize it hasn't gone up and things like that, but that's to keep things going. Is there a redirection of dollars that allows you to use some of the dollars that you have carried over or in your restricted funds balance or any of the restricted funds, any of your reserves, whatever it is, to keep the program going and make sure that things are just kosher as it is? Everything else here is just taking advantage of how to either make it better or the potential to gain more funds. Is that correct? When I look at, we need another staff and we have the opportunity to go after more money out of the state if we get matching grant funds. Those are really the two things that are here. Correct. I mean, the 4,500 will just throw
status quo.
Status quo.
Status quo, and an opportunity for you to say, yes, we want you to go after some of that money.
So I fought this in the SWCD. I fought it as a mayor. I fight it in different things and it's not directed towards you, Buffy. I believe you got a good heart. One of the things that we see is that this is how you expand government. And I just want to make this as just a statement. You expand government when you're paying to the state out of this pocket and they say, well, we'll take this money. Now we'll pull out of this pocket and we'll give this to the county. And then if you match and you match, we collectively grow. And then at some point they can yank the rug out from underneath of you and say, hey, guess what? We're not going to do this anymore because we need a balanced budget, but you have now added more staff. You've added this, and you got people sitting around, and we watch the SWCD go like this, and then go like this, and then go like this, going through this exact same thing. So I've said it on the Whitewater Joint. I voted against these things because it's two sides of the taxpayer's dollar you're pulling out to collectively expand something, and that's what scares me about these things. And we look at what we're facing right now with tax levies and the people that came up. It's very difficult to be palatable. Now, if you're on your last meal and you weren't sure how to put gas in the car to get home, that's a little different story. But when there's money sitting in the bank and things like that, it's something that, as you can see, I've been pretty consistent since I've got on the board. So I just want to just make the statement that we have to be careful when we get into this funding, like, hey, we got this opportunity. If we raise the levy on our current taxpayers, technically it justifies what the state is doing that's already raising the taxes on the taxpayers. And now we're collectively going after it from a twofold position. And to me, it's the hook all the time. And the state is phenomenal at doing it. And we fall for it every time. And that's what's scary. So I wanted to make that mention that this is not a new process. I've seen this happen for many, many years. And then the local taxpayer and the local government entity is held hanging on to the carrot going, well, how do we continue to fund this now? We put this new staff in and everything else, and we've lost it.
Mr. Ward.
I think we have to be cognizant of what's going to happen with our state legislature. Yes, they had $17 billion that they threw out all over. We're seeing that everybody's read the newspaper. They're not going to have 17 billion going forward. So I think some of the promises and the programs and think this is that they promised and want to start, and they're giving all this seed money. That's gonna be gone. You heard the one. Obviously, the citizen sound like he was a home builder, but he's expecting a big crash
coming.
And I think there's handwriting on the wall that it is coming. So I think we just have to be conservative.
Well, the worst part of it is once it goes to 140, 190 or whatever it is, it'll never go back to 100.
Oh, yes, it will.
Think so?
I've been here and it has.
Yeah. Well, okay. And it may,
I've held you at 100 for.
but
Yeah.
I mean,
And
it's,
we went up for the floods
yeah.
to come in and help, and we came back down.
Yeah. And I guess I said that a little facetious. I meant typically in government, we don't see things
Agreed.
go that way. We
Agreed.
tend to see them go that way.
And to be totally transparent, that is why this was presented as an option A and an option B. Option B is planned to be, and it will be in 2025 if there is more money still out there and available. Option A and B. It will not become part of the option A.
So I'm going to second Commissioner Ward's motion.
Commissioner Ward has moved that the board adopt option A, and Commissioner Elsing has seconded it. Is there further discussion?
Just one last comment. We really got people's attention this year. And to tell you the truth, yes, it's a small item on the tax statement, but it is a separate line item. In my 20 plus years, I never had as many people question, what is that? And I had more people this year ask me, what is that?
What is what?
The HRA.
HRA.
Well, you don't have it on your tax statement because it's a separate line item for the HRA. And so got their attention.
Good.
It's not a lot of money, but it's money.
And one more comment.
How about if I'm going to give it to
Oh, I
Commissioner
did.
Olson, and
Commissioner
then I will
Olson
give
was
it to you.
I just have a quick question. Could you remind me when we did the preliminary levy, what I supported?
I can remind you. You're looking at it, $100,000 and the additional 90. So a total of 190,000.
It was a 4-1 vote.
Yeah. Yep. This is the preliminary levy. If you would have accepted it, it would have been higher than this, but
This wasn't the original request. It was a,
110,000.
yes,
So
this was a
Not
lower.
to interrupt you, but Commissioner Elsing, I
Sorry.
think, was next.
That's
And
okay.
then you.
Well, and again, I don't mean anything personal to this, but I sitting, again, going back to other boards I've sat in the county, it's been kind of the exact same thing. I've always said, be careful about taxing authority because you can create a really negative position in the public's eye. It takes a long time to get rid of. When you start looking at what's coming up right now and we're going, hey, by the way, we're going to double your budget. Just pick the wrong year.
The wrong meeting to present it to.
I'm just trying to be honest with you, right? And I have literally been the black sheep up the
Yeah.
Capitol when we go up, when I was on that board, waving my hands going, don't you dare give the SWCD taxing authority because you get the wrong group of people in there. It creates a black eye for that organization that takes decades to get rid of when they go gangbusters. And I'm falling under that pretense now that's saying, maybe just the wrong time. What I'd like to see is expansion and growth and houses and dairy parlors and all these things to fund all this. And we need to keep that in mind when we're denying all those things, but asking for all these things. The money's coming from a set group of people and we're seeing the opposition to what's happening. And that's why I got to stay consistent in this. I apologize. And thank you
No,
for all your hard
no,
work.
Thank you.
So
I will say that if we don't support this, then you're going to miss it. This is not going to happen again. This is preservation of your homes and your housing stock.
Commissioner Bagley.
I'm going to vote against the resolution. I think this is a prime example of penny wise and pound foolish. There are times to go slow and let the others figure out the problems. There are times to move quickly. I think this is the time to move quickly. This is a limited amount of funds, and I think it would be foolish not to go after it. It is going to mean more levy dollars, but if it can bring back that and then some times over, then it would be, I think in my mind, I won't speak for myself, it'd be penny wise and pound foolish not to go after this. I like to stick with what we agreed to before, which wasn't the original request, but it was a lesser amount, so.
Further discussion? Commissioner Olson?
I'm still confused. Well, excuse me, it's late. My previous decision vote was at the 100,000 level,
190.
190.
190.
Originally the
And we
request
got there at 4-1.
3-1-4.
Three.
Well, I'm not sure.
I wasn't
Josh
on
was
it.
here, so
I wasn't here.
3-1.
3-1.
But we did, maybe it's confusing you, is we did have a discussion of what we could use that public, that
Right.
130.
And then the other part of that, does that fit into our option that we chose on the levy at 9.4?
This is a separate levy. This isn't affected by our 9.8 levy.
Original
Is that what
request,
you're
the
asking?
original request was 100 plus 110. This was the compromise, was 100 plus 90. Is that a fair summary?
Correct. That's a fair summary.
It's been a while.
See, Greg,
Yes.
you don't get it on your tax statement. Everybody out. in the
It's a
county,
separate line
Separate, it's a separate line.
It's
item, so
not
it doesn't
part of our-
affect our budget. We discussed earlier.
Cities and counties have different, yeah, and rural have different line items, exactly.
Right.
So this is going to hit our district's
Yes.
funding,
Yes.
not
Right.
yours.
Not-
That's
None of
correct.
the city.
And so will the benefits, but yes.
Further discussion?
So, yes, and no.
Motion on the table is to select option A. The motion was made by Commissioner Ward, seconded by Commissioner Elsing. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those who are opposed, please say nay.
Nay.
Nay. Motion does not carry.
I'll make a motion to approve option B.
Second.
Okay. Commissioner Vagley has moved and Commissioner Olson has seconded. Selection of option B for the Semtra levy request. Is there further conversation? We did discuss if we might take the 90,000 one-time funding out of our local housing aid, and I would have stuck to that, except for it seems we can't do that. So I do support the 190,000. I can tell you, I'm sorry, the county is desperate for housing. Low-income people need housing. That's the information that's come back from the housing study so far, that there are, boy, I'm trying to remember the presentation from the Health and Human Services Advisory Committee that Engage Winona did. Commissioner Vega, do you remember?
Not the specific numbers.
Yeah, but it was like 30% of our
In terms of
renters are income burdened, but then it's an even larger percent of those who are severely income burdened. And so they were high and shocking numbers. So if Semtra is willing to build new housing for low income people, I am going to support that. Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of option B, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And those who are opposed, please say nay.
Nay.
This motion has carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Since we dealt with comments earlier, this concludes our business.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
9 o'clock.
Commissioner Ward has moved, Commissioner Elsing has seconded adjournment. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. If anyone's opposed, please say nay.
Time's good.
We are adjourned.
I lost 7 minutes of the day.